All right, so gonna do an intro. Hey everyone, so today on the podcast we are joined by Derek Killingbird Tenbusch and Carlos, semi-homeless professional poker player, student, etc. What's up, guys? How's it going?
What's up? Pretty good.
Yeah, it's going really, really well. We're despite a gas shortage and apparently riots in Charlotte, we're still standing here in North Carolina.
Wait, there's a gas shortage?
Yeah, apparently some gas line broke, so for the last 5 days or so, it's basically been like Mad Max trying to find gas around the town. But I'm lucky because me and my wife work at home, so we don't really go anywhere. So it hasn't been that bad for us. But for other people, it's been like, oh, I waited in line for 2 hours today to get gas. I'm like, well, you should have got a different job, sucker.
Yeah, I was watching on the news about the riots, and I thought about you and a couple other buddies that live in the area. The world is going crazy all around us, man.
Oh yeah, it's insane. In fact, the riots in Charlotte are happening because another man was shot by police, and the guy was shot actually in the apartment building adjacent to my son's apartment building. So it suddenly got really real today. I was like,
wow. I'm
like, okay, well, Andrew, stay in your apartment. You don't have to go to class. You could skip today. It's cool.
Wow.
Yeah. The world's crazy, man. World's crazy.
What's the reason for the gas shortage?
I guess there was a gas line breakage or something in Alabama or something, but it fed the entire sort of southeast from Georgia up to Virginia and I think maybe over to Tennessee. So basically just nobody, the suppliers couldn't get gas for whatever reason.
I see. I don't watch the news anymore because it's just bad shit after bad shit.
Yeah, really good decision. I try to avoid it when I can, but I do need gas today, so I guess I'll watch.
So the riots, the shooting that happened, is this the shooting that allegedly the guy was reading a book or he had a book in his hand? That's what some of the witnesses were saying?
Yeah. Okay. So it's kind of a weird situation now because everybody's kind of just which is, I guess, good. This is the way it should happen. Everybody's kind of standing by waiting to find out, did he have a gun? Did he have a book? Did he have neither? But of course, there's some people who've already decided book or he had a gun, so they're all going absurdly crazy on both their sides of the aisle, and the rest of us are just sitting here going, well, let's just let people figure out which did he have. There's probably body cameras. There's probably cell phone footage. We'll probably find out the answer. But meanwhile, they're trying to burn down the city, I guess. So
right.
Yeah. Pretty wild. Yeah.
Hashtag America.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm actually working with a guy right now that lives about 20 minutes from where the shooting happened, so he was talking about it a lot yesterday. But
yeah, it's really interesting. I just literally ate a 5-minute dinner with my wife, and we were talking about the fact that regardless of which side of the fence you might be on in this battle of police versus urban youth or whatever, however you want to describe it, there's clearly something wrong in America because Big Dog Pocket Fives never texts me to go, hey man, they're burning down Toronto because police shot some guy, or because a guy blew a bomb up in the middle of a city in Montreal, or it only seems to happen here, and it's the weirdest thing, and I don't really know what to point to or what to blame it on, but we clearly have something that we need to really try to get right in our American society because it's really, really fucked up right now.
My default,
for whatever reason.
My default is to blame it on. Go ahead, Carlos. Yeah.
I was going to say there was actually another shooting a couple of days ago in Tulsa, Oklahoma also. So it's 2 in 1 week. And yeah, you're right that you don't see this in Canada or, some other places. So yeah, I agree with you. There's definitely something wrong here that people need to get straightened out.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if it's too many guns on the street. I don't know if it's poor police training. I don't know if it's just a cultural divide between non-white and white. I don't even know how to describe it. All I know is, can we please just all sit down and try to figure this out, because it's really fucking tilting.
I think everybody should be forced to play poker, because we don't have these problems
Exactly.
in the poker community. It should be a requirement in elementary school.
Carlos just trying to increase the ROI.
Yeah, get more fish in.
Yeah. Good fuck.
So I think an interesting factor that I don't see talked about very often is that, and as a disclaimer, it's absolutely has nothing to do with color of skin, but blacks go to jail more, they commit more crimes, they generally just more crimes, they're in jail more. I think a large percentage of those people are black. And if it has nothing to do with the color of their skin, which obviously it doesn't, you have to ask why. And then you look at things like the law Reagan put in place, and the war on drugs was kind of started or escalated by Reagan, and then his chief of staff or something like that many years later said that it was purposely to target minorities. So there's this trickle-down effect where you have lots of black people who go to jail, and you go to jail, I think you kind of come out a worse person. Maybe you have kids and you go to jail, they grow up without fathers. You have this shitty education system, which doesn't help them at all. Racism, which was pretty rampant for a pretty long time, and it still exists till today. And I think that creates a situation where you see blacks going to jail and committing more crimes. And as a cop, that's your reality. Whenever you're arresting people, the majority of the time it's black people. If you have a friend that was killed on the job, I don't want to say it was I don't know if that's true, but I'm going to stop there when it comes to race stuff. But I'm going to stop there before I get into too much. But
yeah, I think you raised some good points. I think a lot of people point to the fact that, a higher percentage of crime is committed by race X, race Y, race C, whatever. But they don't realize that, and you hear a lot of people. This is the comment I always hear. Well, when you talk about civil rights, and you talk about slavery, and you talk about race relations, people always say, well, how long do we have to be punished for what happened 100 years ago? And I'm like, it wasn't 100 years ago. It was in my lifetime. I'm not that old. I was born in 1972, but somebody sent me a picture the other day from 1978 of a white guy stabbing a black guy with an American flag. And I'm like, that happened in my lifetime. Yeah, I'll send you guys the picture. It's crazy, right? Yeah. So it was about the whole Kaepernick flag, not standing, not saluting, whatever. And I'm like, that happened in our lifetime. So I'm sure there will come a point in our history as humans where we'll go, okay, well, maybe that happened too long ago now that we can blame it on that anymore. But right now, I promise you we can blame it on that. Because it really was not that long ago that people were sitting in different parts of the bus, or sitting in a different part of the restaurant, or not being able to use a certain restroom. So to say that trickle-down effect is not happening is insane to me. But I'm also just a 40-year-old poker player, so what do I know?
I seen something tweeted by an Iraq vet, and he was talking about all the procedures they have to make before doing a kill shot. Even if a vehicle's barreling down towards them that might have explosives in it, they have to send warnings and flares, aim for disabling shots, and then some other one in between there, and then a kill shot. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the rules is you can't do a kill shot unless fired upon. So it's for the life of me, I can't understand how cops can just say, oh, well, heat of the moment.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he looked suspicious. I mean, that seems to be the issue with this Tulsa, Oklahoma one. Is you have police officers actually saying like, "Oh, he looks kind of crazy. He might be. I think he's on something." And meanwhile, he's like a church driving to get his kids, and his car broke down. It's like, how do you get from? No.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the guy that said that he looks like he's on something was in a helicopter. So like, how can you even tell that from that distance?
Yeah. I have a hard time figuring out when my friends in Vegas are on something when we're there for the World Series. So being able to figure it out from a helicopter got to be impossible.
Right.
But
Absolutely.
it's definitely, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I know there's probably cooler things for us to talk about, but at the end of the day, I think it's a huge problem that we have to have conversations about. And I don't have the answers, that's for sure. I'm sure none of us do, but
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm at least happy that I have
pretty
friends
sure.
who I can talk about it with, you know?
Yep.
I'm pretty sure Trump doesn't have the answers either.
I'm going to
Yeah.
go ahead and guess not.
Yeah.
But we'll find out in November, I suppose.
Yeah. We might. Yeah. It's definitely a huge problem. I don't even know where to begin with it, but I think we definitely need to focus on it as a nation.
Yeah.
Do you guys disagree that I place very little blame on cops, or I definitely don't blame the black people. I kind of just blame politicians and like education system.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
agree.
sorry, Carlos. Yeah, I think for me, I mean, it's really hard to place blame either way at this point. I mean, you kind of have a system that employs police in a very sort of weird way in that they don't get a ton of training. Like, if you want to be an accountant, you get more training than if you want to be a cop. You know, if you want,
Yeah.
I mean, Carlos has spent more time studying poker than most police officers have studied being a police officer. In fact, probably more than all police officers have studied to be a police officer. But again, at the same time, like, I can't blame, you know, the opposite side either, because, you know, people are always like, well, why is that person acting nervous, or why are they running? And I'm like, well, maybe because they're afraid they're going to get shot. You know, like,
Yeah.
I mean, enough people have been shot at this point where you know, if I'm a young African American male and I get pulled over in downtown Durham at 2 a.m, I might think about running too, because I don't know what's going to happen to me. So yeah, I'm hesitant to blame either side. I think I'm with you. I think I tend to blame the system. Like, and I know that's like a stereotypical thing to say, like, down with the system or whatever, but like, there's clearly a systematic issue in our country with law enforcement and politics and culture and race, and I mean, we just have. And honestly, I don't even know if it'll be fixed in our lifetime. And we're all probably too old to see it fixed in our lifetime, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that.
So,
Yeah.
let's change subjects a bit. I'm curious about the origin story of Tournament Poker Edge.
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite things to talk about. I would tell this story to 1,000 people if I ever had the opportunity to. So, Tournament Poker Edge kind of came about in like two ways that sort of congrued into each other. I don't know if congrued is a word, but you get the idea. So
I'm Googling it.
Yeah, Diego Lamonto and I, who's my business partner, we were poker guys who lived sort of a very similar life. So we had a family, we had day jobs, but we were sort of like working our way up through the mid stakes and trying to kind of figure out, like, what do we do with our lives next in poker. And we were hanging out mostly in like the 2+2 forums, but it was right around that time that 2+2 was getting very sort of trolly, and I don't know, like, you know, you would post like this like weird turn spot, and every response would be fold pre, you know, like,
right.
and it got to this point where I was like, this is, I don't know, like, I'm not really learning anything here, so. Basically, we just decided we were going to start our own forum.
To explain to the younger kids, 2+2 used to be amazing. I mean, there used to be Sean Deeb, DJ Kelly, Dan Kelly, Stealth Monk, Bakes, like a bunch of sickos talking real strategy on the forums.
Yeah, like, I don't know that anybody will ever be able to explain to the young kids like how cool 2+2 was at one time. I mean, I remember reading threads from you and from Andrew Brokus, and like you said, Sean Deeb's Guide to 180 Mans was one of the most like life-changing like forum posts. But I don't think those posts happen anymore. So at the time, we were like, why don't we just start our own forum where we just don't invite trolls and we only invite cool people, you know? So we started a forum. It was called LOL Nice Squeeze, and it was like 50 people, and there was some pretty cool guys from there, like Amir SF, who final tabled the main event a few years ago, was in there. Hit the Panda, Andrew Brokus, a bunch of other like random people. And then what ended up happening was me and Diego discovered that we also had sort of we both had a passion for entrepreneurship and business and marketing. And we kind of got to talking like, well, why don't we start a poker company? Like, what would that be? Like, that'd be fun. So we brainstormed like about 40 ideas, and I have looked 100 times for our brainstorm list, and I cannot find it. But we had some really cool ideas. Like the whole idea of poker insurance, which actually ended up happening, was something we came up with in that brainstorm process. So I actually forget the name of that company that ended up launching, but I think it failed. So apparently we picked the right business.
It was bubble something.
Yeah, bubble
protection. Yep.
Yeah. So we had this whole idea, like, well, why don't we just have insurance? Like, if you enter a tournament, you can pay like 10% of that buy-in, and you get insurance. So if you don't cash, you get a certain amount of money back. So we had this whole idea, and that ended up happening. But we ended up settling on a training site mainly because we had been members of other training sites, and we just didn't really like any of them, either because they were like too cash game focused, or there was just the main reason was there was no community. Like there was I was a member of Poker Savvy back in the day, which I don't even think exists anymore, but at that time, I never talked to a single person at Poker Savvy, not at the company, not another member, like not in the forums. So we were just like, let's just start a training site that is a training site almost second and a community first. So we literally launched this company. We spent about 6 months, Diego and I, basically working. You know, we had day jobs, so we would go to work and we would work till 6, and then we'd eat dinner, and then we'd put our kids to bed. And then around like 8 o'clock at night, we'd work from like 8 p.m. to like 3 a.m. building this business. And then we'd go to sleep and we would just start all over again the next day. We did that for about 6 months. Our goal was to maybe try to break even within 9 months of launching the company. And we got really, really lucky. We launched the company. We were break even in 30 days. And ever since then, we've just been trying to build it and grow it and make it as cool of a thing as we can. So yeah, it's been so much fun. Like I feel blessed every day to do it.
You guys must have been really motivated to do that, because I can imagine how difficult that is, being single but being married and doing that has to make it even harder.
Yeah, I think it was almost like it was almost just like this sort of unintentional momentum where we just kind of decided to do it. And then once we started, it was almost like we were just stumbling forward.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like we almost didn't really even know how to stop, or if we should or if we shouldn't. Like we're just like, well, we're already going down the path now, so we might as well finish. And I think it helped. It helped that Diego had some experience in the startup world. I had probably at that point 12 or 15 years of experience in the marketing world, so we kind of knew what we were getting into. But it definitely would have been very easy at some point to just go, all right, well, that was a fun experiment. Let's just stop now, But I'm obviously glad we didn't now, because it's turned out to be amazing. But yeah, it was many weird nights. I can actually visually see it in my head, like me and Diego being on Skype. Like, actually, at that time, it might have been AIM, which is kind of crazy. And literally just going, hey, man, did you build page number 7 yet? I'm like, oh no, I didn't. Let me get on that, and I would do it. But yeah, we had some amazing, crazy nights at 4 a.m, like talking about business, and then going, oh shit, I got to be on the subway at 6:30. Good night. and then guys like Carlos came along and made it all worth it.
I love this story, man. This is a great story.
That was pretty fucking cool.
That's pretty awesome, yeah. So how long ago did you launch TPE?
We just celebrated our 6-year anniversary, or no, 5-year, 6-year anniversary. Yeah, it was 2010.
10.
Yeah, so yeah, we just celebrated 6 years.
April 15th, 2010.
Yeah, which was also kind of a crazy night because it was one of those nights where we hadn't even really planned on launching, and then one day we were kind of on Skype doing our thing, and we were just like, hey, I think we're done. I think it's ready now. Maybe we should turn it on. So yeah, it was April 15th going into 16th, but technically it was April 15th.
Is April 15th Black Friday or?
Yes. Yeah. Which is always April 15th is always a great day and a sad day for that reason. So when we launched, it was obviously really amazing, like watching the first customer sign up and then the second and the third. And then, and we were growing it, and it was growing so fast, and it was so cool. And then literally one day to the year. So we're like planning like our celebration, we're like, oh, let's do like an online party, or let's do all these like cool graphics and like happy birthday. And then that day, Black Friday happens. So instead of essentially capitalizing on our 1-year anniversary, we're all scrambling to like find out if our money is safe or what is happening in the poker world. So we went from building a company from 0 to X thousand to literally losing half our customers in about 90 days. From Black Friday to 3 months later, we lost about half our customers.
And I was one of those. I was just snap unread as soon as Black Friday happened. And luckily I found my way back a couple of months later.
Yeah, and we had a lot of people. I mean, there were a lot of people who had already kind of felt that community aspect and were really into it, and they would text us, or not text, they would email us or message us and say, "Hey, man, I'm really sorry, but like I don't know what's going on. I can't get back on full tilt. I don't know what's happening. I just have to cancel." And you couldn't even there was really no way to try to convince them to come back. Like you couldn't even be like, "No, man. Yeah, poker's great. Hang in there," And then it was weird because then you also had like guys in UK or Australia who were just like, "Hey, my password doesn't work," Right. So you had like these two like dichotomies of like guys whose literally their world was ending, and then other guys who were just like, "Hey, life's good over here, man. Can you fix my password?" But yeah, it was a challenging time. I think we were actually. I would say we were 2 months away from probably closing our doors. Like, if we hadn't made some pretty tough business decisions right around that time, like within 2 to 3 months of Black Friday, I don't think TP would exist today. So we did some sort of restructuring of our ownership. We changed our entire marketing strategy to where we were marketing to the U.S. and then had to shift it to other countries. We hired a bunch of non-U.S. pros, but if we hadn't done those things, I'm 99% sure like TP wouldn't even exist today.
Wow, it's kind of scary.
Yeah, I don't know.
I could very easily be sitting in front of a group of middle school kids right now.
What have you been up to, Carlos, since Vegas? What's going on?
Well, right after Vegas, well, first of all, I drove my van from Atlanta to Vegas this summer with the intention of moving out to the West Coast. But right after Vegas, there was a unexpected circuit event that kind of popped up at the last minute in Cherokee, which I always like to go to. So I drove back east for the circuit event, and right after that, I drove back out west. So now I'm back in the Vegas area, but while here, I usually get, like, in addition to the van, I usually get like a small office space. And so there was one that I had in Atlanta that I paid like $200 a month for. And during the summer in Vegas, I got another one out there for around $200 a month, but I didn't like that one as much. So when I came back from Cherokee, I wanted to find a different space, and I found one that I liked, but it was like $300 a month. And so I was cool with that, but there was some delays with there was somebody in that space that needed to get their stuff out first, so they really didn't want to have me they had me sign the lease and fill out the paperwork, and I gave them the money and everything, and then they told me, well, actually you can't come in until this other person comes out, like 5 days after the first of guess that would have been September, because I got back towards the end of August. And so, they talked about it for a while, the two people in the office, and they decided, we're just going to give you your money back, and then we'll give you a call next week when this person is out of the office. So on the one hand, I'm like kind of disappointed because I found the office that I wanted and didn't get it right away. But I knew, like they said, I would get it the next week, no problem. But in the meantime, I wanted to grind online Sunday, which I can't do on my van anymore because I cracked the screen on my laptop with my knee somehow. And so now I can only grind if I have like somewhere to like set up a monitor and all that. So I had to get a hotel room because the office thing fell through. So I'm looking around for hotel rooms online, and I found out that there's a town south of Vegas called Laughlin where you can get hotel rooms for like $20 a night. And these are like nice hotel rooms attached to casinos. Like I would say the quality is similar to like Gold Coast, if you've ever stayed there. And so I came down here. It's like 75 minutes south of Vegas, and I got one of the rooms. And so 5 nights. Well, the first time I just did it one night, but I liked it so much that I said, you know what, man, I'm just gonna do this again next week instead of getting the office. And so basically I found a deal for that next week where I could stay from Sunday through Thursday, 5 days, for a total of $92. And that included taxes. There's no resort fees. That was like basically everything. And I'm like, for almost the price of that office I was going to get, I can actually live at the hotel. So what I'm doing now is I'm staying here Sunday through Thursday to grind online, and then on the weekend, Friday and Saturday, I drive back up to Vegas, and then I just play the tournaments at the Wynn on the weekend, and then I come back down and basically just do that over and over again all week. And when I'm in Vegas, I just stay in the van.
Damn, you balling now. You got a hotel and everything.
That's I don't know if you noticed. Well, Doug noticed. I changed it on Skype to semi-homeless poker player, and I got to give credit to KB for coining that term on the Mid-Stakes Living podcast that I was on.
Yeah, you've graduated to high stakes living.
Yeah. Yeah, I got a I actually have 2 beds because I couldn't get the one with the king bed. There's a pool, hot tub.
Oh,
it's like right on the Colorado River, so you kind of forget that you're in a desert because there's like water and like a little small beach and everything. It's great down here.
Plus, you're winning every tournament you play, which is also cool.
That's true. The wind, the fields at the Wynn are really soft, and so I just had a pretty good weekend where I played on Friday and got 3rd for like 2K, and then I played on Saturday and got 1st for 5K. And so I've played it 6 times and I've cashed 3 of them. I want to say the other time I cashed, I got 6th. So that is obviously unsustainable, but I would be shocked if I couldn't cash this thing like 30% of the time. Players are that bad.
Well, not to mention just the awesomeness of being able to balance. Like, I can't do that here in Raleigh. Like, I can't balance the live grind with the online grind in any way that is comfortable or enjoyable. So the fact that you can just be like, I think I'll roll up to Vegas this weekend and play the Wynn. That'll be fun. And then I'll go back to Laughlin and play online. Like, I envy that whole situation because that sounds amazing. Like, people who live up around Jersey have that sort of same kind of situation where they can just be like, oh, I'm going to go to the Borgata and play this series, and then I'll go back to playing online. Yeah. But I can't do that.
Yeah, whenever I want to travel.
Like 5 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same for me. I wanted to play the Borgata events, but it's right after my daughter's birthday. It's day 1B of the main. Just super difficult to get out there.
Yeah.
Just everything else you got going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel
there's
fortunate.
not many.
What's up, Doug?
There's not many live tournaments up here in Maine. I have to travel pretty far.
It sounds like you're doing just fine online. Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
Doug is awesome.
I've been doing well. No complaints.
It was interesting because Doug and I were discussing how much money he needs to quit his job and do the. He wants to do this online boot camp thing or something.
Yeah.
And he was like,
yeah, so I've...
Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, and so I've thought about doing... I actually been thinking about it for a while, doing a web development bootcamp and getting into doing web development software engineering and kind of doing that along with poker. So it's kind of funny. Daryl and I had a conversation on Skype and we kind of talked about the plans for it and how much I would need and all that and how long it would take me to make it. And I made a very big chunk of that in the next couple of weeks after we had that conversation.
Yeah, it's kind of it's almost like it was sort of meant to happen, like you willed yourself to make that kind of money to where you can make that dream a reality, which is awesome. Was it
back-to-back weeks, Doug?
I think it was back.
I think it was. Yeah, it was the Mad Monday main event, and then the following Sunday, the Sunday Major.
Okay, nice. See now I feel like I dropped the ball because last April I played the Bovada main event on a whim, ended up winning it, and I don't think I played it the next week because I shouldn't have played it the time I won it. It was above my bankroll, and I think I didn't play it the next week, and so maybe like a year after that, my buddy Jeff, who's also a TPE member. He played it back-to-back weeks, and I think he got first and then second. And now Doug basically plays it back-to-back weeks, and he gets 2 thirds, I believe. I feel like I should have played it. Like there's like the TPE, run good of playing that thing back-to-back weeks, and I dropped the ball.
You got to ride the wave. When you're on the wave, you just keep riding it.
God, man.
Yeah, Ever since Big Dog did the back-to-back Sunday Million, I think it was
about Big Dog. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Ever since that happened, I always decided that I would never skip the following week if I ever binked something like that.
Yeah, that's great.
I don't know if you guys remember reading Super System, the first one, in Daryl Brunson talking about playing the Rush very seriously, and just playing every single hand after winning a pot.
Yeah.
Oh, he does it on a hand-by-hand basis?
Yeah, he's more gangster.
Yeah. I don't think it that far, but...
Yeah, he was riding the Rush before any of us were.
That's how you get Tenbusch named after you. By playing the hand, by automatically playing the hand after a hand you win.
Yeah, I think,
that's true.
I think it had to be a big pot or something like that. But.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now, there's so many people listening to this who are going, what's Super System? Never heard of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When did you start poker, Derek? How long ago?
Well, I had started, so it would have been like 95, I guess. I started playing sort of non-seriously, so I was like playing in like a couple of home games, but they were literally like home games where it was like past the deal or whatever. So I'd be like, oh, we're playing baseball now, and now we're playing. We had a game called Shit in Your Neighbor's Mailbox. Like it was just game after game after game. And then I think I went online and I found PokerRoom.com, and they had a free roll. I think it was like maybe a $200 guaranteed free roll that ran every morning at like 5 a.m. So I guess it must have been set either for East Coast time or for UK time or something. But I would basically set my alarm and wake up and just play it, but I had no idea what was going on. So I started at 95, but I I always tell the story that I remember losing a hand where I had a jack high flush and somebody had an ace high flush, and I couldn't figure out why we didn't chop the pot. I was like, but I have a flush too. What the hell's going on? And I think everybody in chat thought I was joking, but I was literally like, why did I not win this pot? So I had no idea what was going on. But then I moved to North Carolina, and I left the music business about 2 years after I came to North Carolina. And I remember I was trying to figure out what to do with my life and with my time. And me and my wife were at a bar for dinner, and they had a flyer on the wall. It was like Texas Hold'em night or whatever. You know, you win a $50 gift card. And I started going to that they did it, I think, Mondays and Wednesdays. And I would go every Monday and Wednesday. And that's when I really started to sort of take it seriously and kind of got hooked to the point where I was like, oh, I'm going to go get a book and, you know, read forums and stuff like that. So yeah, it was...
I'm going to give you a test to see how old school you are. Do you remember Paradise Poker?
I remember it very clearly, but I never played on it. Like, it was always around, but I was just one of those guys who was like, well, I'm on Poker Room, I'm good. And then I played on Full Tilt and Poker Stars, but I barely even played on... It actually took me a long time to even play on Poker Stars because I was just like, well, I already have Full Tilt. Why do I need Poker Stars? And somebody's like, well, I have this thing called the Sunday Million. You might want to play in it. So yeah, I definitely do remember it, but I never played a single hand of poker on Paradise.
Panda Poker?
I did play on Party Poker, though.
Do you remember Pacific? Oh, no, Pacific's still around. Party Poker? I mean, Panda Poker. Heard of that one?
Oh, no, I don't remember that one.
I've never heard of that.
That's a really obscure one. There was like 10 to 15 skins you could play on, and I used to grind the free rolls on all of them.
Yeah, see, I'm bummed because I never did. I always hear Mark Aliotta talk about this and other people talk about just like grinding bonuses.
Yeah,
I never did that. Like, there was all these things like you could just sign up and get like $50 for free, and I don't think. In fact, I didn't even have Rakeback on Full Tilt for like the first 4 years. And then I just kept emailing them and going, can I have Rakeback? And then finally one day they were like, you have now been granted Rakeback. And I was like, yes. And then I made like 8 cents before they went under.
Yeah, I can remember it was called Bonus Whoring. And I think maybe there was even a website called bonuswhoring.com.
What happened?
That's amazing. Yeah, see, I never did any of that. I don't think I ever cashed in a single bonus back in those days, which was probably bad planning on my part. But,
yeah.
But
I remember when I used to play on...
That's good.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, but in my defense, like back in those days, I would put like $50 on, and I would play like $1 tournaments. I was pretty good at bankroll even before, like. I never have that story of, so I would deposit 50 and I would play a $50 tournament. I never did that. I would always be like, oh, there's a 25-cent tournament running. I'm going to play that. Like, I was pretty, I mean, it still wasn't even proper bankroll management, but it was at least sort of manageable, where I'd be like, okay, it's going to take me at least 3 or 4 weeks to lose this much money.
I think you're one of the few guys who had bankroll management back then.
Yeah, right. There were no articles about it or anything back then for sure. I just remember going, well, how long can I play if I only play $1 tournaments every day and lose every time?
Winner's mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I remember when I used to play on Full Tilt only and never really played on Stars for a while, and then I eventually found out about Rakeback, and the way that I ended up getting it on Full Tilt was I just emailed them and told them I was going to leave and play on Stars because they have a VIP system if they wouldn't give me Rakeback.
See, I wasn't even smart enough to threaten them. I just begged. I was like, please? Nah, you play enough already. I'm like, damn it.
So you were in the music business for a few years. What were you doing?
Basically marketing. It was called artist development. So essentially marketing for new bands. So the way I always described it to people is my job was to work an artist from the day they sold 0 records to the day they sold 100,000 records. And then they would move on into the bigger machine. So I did that for like 9 years, I guess, at EMI, and then I went to a small independent label, and basically just did straight up marketing there. So, but it was like retail marketing, so working with record stores and iTunes and places like that. So yeah, pretty much what I do now, except I was marketing bands instead of poker sites, I guess.
I imagine it must be different with strategies and stuff. Like, quite different.
Yeah, it's definitely like a whole different demographic, of course. And I mean, the one thing that helped was that as the music industry changed, it became so much more online and so much more digital and so much more about social media. So that part transitioned sort of fairly well over to marketing a poker site. But like the early days in the music industry where it was a lot of like literally standing on the corner in front of a nightclub handing out flyers or CD samplers or whatever, that part was definitely different. And I guess you could also say that the sort of working with a unique subset of the population, I'm not saying that well. So artists, music artists are a very interesting breed of person to work with, and poker players are a very interesting breed of person to work with. So that actually sort of, I guess, relates a little bit too, because you're dealing with basically in both have chosen to make a living doing something that they,
right. So
they kind of feel like they feel like they're going to make their own path and do their own thing, and they don't want to be told what to do and things like that. Like that kind of, I guess, relates to.
Right. What are the kind of interesting quirks or stereotypes of musicians? I think for poker players, I think what the oddest thing to me about poker players is that a large percentage of the population is pretty atheist and a lot more analytical and logical.
Yeah, and I think it's actually the opposite with musicians. So musicians are very sort of like from the heart, like very emotional, like making quick decisions about things that are bigger decisions than they should be making that quick. So like, I think poker players spend a lot of time studying and practicing and thinking days in advance. Like, well, what am I going to do on the turn when the turn brings a flush draw? Whereas musicians are very much just like, this guy spit at me, so I hit him with my guitar. Like it's a much more emotional and there are certainly those emotional types in poker too, but I don't think they last as long, so they kind of come and go. Where the ones who I think are a little bit better about thinking and planning and analyzing and stuff like that probably last a little longer. And I think they're also a little bit more likely. So poker players, I think, are a little bit more likely to be, for lack of a better word, intelligent without ever actually having maybe any formal schooling or anything. Whereas musicians may or may not be intelligent and may or may not have gone to school. So you get you get literally guys who grew up on the streets and, still live sort of a street type of life. And then you get guys who grew up very blue collar or guys who grew up white collar. But at the end of the day, none of them went to college. None of them are like sort of properly formally educated. So it's just like, it's just a really interesting dynamic.
All right. What do you think are like the advantages are there any advantages they have or ways they live that you think is better that things that they do that poker players don't do that just lead to more happier, more balanced lives or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, it's sort of appropriate that Carlos is on the call because I think Carlos kind of lives a poker lifestyle that is not unlike many musicians live. It's like living in a van, traveling from venue to perform for a show. I mean, he's not obviously performing necessarily, but he's essentially living day to day and traveling here to there and meeting new people and all that kind of stuff. So I think you'll see a lot of poker players who essentially, it's sort of a benefit to them early. They learn to live independently and they make their own money and they make probably, maybe in many cases very good money, but they also don't necessarily get out and socialize with people outside of a poker circle. Whereas musicians are literally thrown in front of hundreds of people every day who are very different from them. And they have to learn to socialize with those people and meet with those people. So yeah, in a way, it's like I said. I mean, it's appropriate that Carlos is here because he's kind of living the best of both of those worlds. He's like a music artist who's on tour. He just happens to be playing poker instead of playing guitar.
That's true. That's a great analogy.
Are you kind of forced to socialize a lot, or do you socialize a lot, Carlos?
I'm forced to when I'm at the poker table,
Right.
but that's only because I'm wearing the TPE gear. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be talking to anybody.
Right.
But and some of it, I guess you can say forced when, like, if I'm playing with somebody that I don't know and they don't know me, then I generally don't want to talk to them. But if I'm just out and about at a casino and some guy that heard me on a podcast wants to talk to me, in a way, I'm forced to talk to him, but I usually want to talk to them in that case. So
Right.
it's kind of a hard question to answer. Like, I don't go out seeking to talk to people, but if people that kind of kind of know me from all the poker stuff I do, if they want to talk, then yeah, I'll talk to them. But I'm never gonna initiate the conversation.
Right. Yeah, I kind of been enjoying live poker more than online lately, just for being able to kind of socialize and talk to people. But it's usually people that I already know, though, or sort of know.
Right. Like working the booth in Vegas this summer was a situation where I got a lot of that. Like either people will walk down the hall and they would hear my voice and say, "Oh, I know that voice from somewhere." And, we would start a conversation that way. And yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it, but I never stopped anybody as they were walking down the hall and say, hey, talk to me. Like, I'm not a social butterfly like that. Like Tim worked the booth for a while. Tim is like more of a rock star than I am. He's out and like, he's chatting up people at the booth next door. And like, I don't do all that, but if somebody knows me, like, I'll always have a conversation with them.
Have you ever talked, I'm sure you have you ever talked to Tim after TPE's like implementing something new, like the day he found out?
I don't know if the booth would count as that. But I mean, well, implementing. I mean, like.
Well, basically, anytime like something new would come up, like the poker. I think there was like a poker school thing on TPE. I'd get on the call with him. He'd just be so excited and so pumped.
Like TPE University.
Yeah, TPE University. He was so fucking pumped.
Yeah, so I had some of those conversations with. I wrote the questions for TPE University, and so in the process of doing that and talking back and forth with Tim over Skype, yeah, I know what you mean.
It is kind of interesting though, because I always tell people like one of my favorite things, in fact, probably my favorite thing about being in poker is all the people that I've met through it, and like the social aspect, like meeting people I would have never met otherwise. But it's funny how as the years go on, like when I go to play at a $1,500 WSOP, I just don't really want to talk to anybody.
Right.
Like as much as that is what is really kind of fueled me and I think made me grow as a person and all that stuff, like in the poker world, I'm finding myself less and less patient for it. I feel like I don't know if it's because I'm becoming more bitter and jaded or if it's because the people around me are changing. But I feel like 5, 6, 7 years ago when I would sit at the poker table, it was just a lot of really cool people, like not even cool as in like they're hip or they're trendy or whatever, but like cool, like they were nice, they were genuine, they were pure-hearted, And now I feel like 7 out of 9 people at the table are just douchebags, for lack of a better word. Like either they're like too cool for school, or they're assholes to the dealer, or something about it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting old and jaded. It's too early for me to make a decision about this, but it's a weird dynamic that I'm finding. Every year I go to the World Series, I'm less and less inclined to talk to anybody at the table.
I had 2 amazing tables at the World Series. One table was almost like I was in a podcast where the whole table was in on it, and it was hilarious. I mean, we were just talking, like, sharing crazy stories, talking about, like, porn and bukakis and like Brazilian wandering spiders, and like the whole table's getting in on it, and just like complete random conversations and like cracking up the whole time. That was in the main event on day 2. That was great.
Hold on, did you say porn and bukakis?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And when a woman,
I heard that right.
When a woman dealer sat down, like the conversation didn't stop. Just like kept going.
Jesus. See, this is that is the type of table that I would hate to be at. I would hate to be at that table.
Oh man, it was hilarious. We had this other table where this guy, he sold his company for somewhere in the tens of millions, and he was drunk off his ass, wearing like a watch that was over 100,000, and just like punting money and just being absolutely hilarious, and the whole table's like laughing with him and laughing at him and cracking jokes the whole entire time. And this was day 1 of the main event as well, so like you definitely get some pretty fun tables at times, but it's kind of rare, I guess.
Yeah, I almost feel like it kind of. I can almost point to the tipping point where it changed for me, and it was at the Venetian, like not last year, not the year before, so it would have been 3 years ago. And there was a guy who was just like incredibly rude to a guy who was clearly a very new player, who was nervous. His hands were shaking every time he picked up his chips, and the guy was just a real dick to him. And I remember that being sort of like the time where I was just like, I know I own a poker company and I have to put on a good face, but I'm just not going to put up with these people who are assholes to other people at the table. And I almost got in a fist fight with him. And Big Dog was right behind me. He's like, "Hey, Derek, if we need to go outside, just let me know. I'm ready to fight." But yeah, I can almost point to that moment as the time where it changed for me. And I mean, don't get me wrong. Like to this day, like I still love meeting like so many people, and especially TPE members or podcast listeners or viewers of my Twitch channel or whatever. Like it's amazing. But it just seems like there's a higher percentage of not good people around the poker world these days. And I don't know why that is. And again, it might be my problem. It might not be theirs. I'm willing to be man enough to admit that might be the case. But I feel like I'm right.
We all do. I had a guy at my World Series table where after I busted him, basically everyone at the table thanked me. He sat down and he talked for 2 hours straight, and he must have mentioned how he got 7th in the Colossus last year about 20 times.
Oh, jeez.
And it was just like constant brags and stories, and then complaining about like Poker News getting like some small detail wrong about like 5 times.
Like here's a perfect example. So I grew up, in the sort of Mike the Mouth, Phil Hellmuth, Negreanu. Like that's where I grew up. Watching those guys play.
Poker was so fun back then. Yeah.
Yeah, but then I look at the guys like, I mean, if anybody's watched the latest WSOP airings, like this Kossoff guy. Is that how you pronounce his name?
I can't watch
is his first name William?
Anymore.
Yeah,
he's the British guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like that. That's a guy I would have drugged by the shirt collar out into the parking lot of the Rio and punched in the throat 7 times. Like I can't deal with it, and I think it's because maybe it was just more legit back then. Like people, like I feel like when Mike the Mouth was Mike the Mouth, like that was him. Like he was just being himself, and now it's like people are trying so hard to put on some kind of show, but they do it at the expense of other people to the point where I just want to strangle them. And I don't know if I can deal with it much longer. I'm getting physically angry right now thinking about it.
I was railing it, and I saw that guy, and he was I want to say Tony Gregg. He was at the table with Tony Gregg, and Tony Gregg opened, and this guy 3-bet Tony Gregg, and instantly just started like talking nonstop while Tony Gregg was in the tank. About what to do facing a 3-bet. And I don't know, man. Like, to me, I understand. I guess he's trying to tilt him or something. I don't know what his thing is, but I guess, like, Tony Gregg is the type of person that, I don't know, like, he's, to me, and I don't even think he's that old, but he just kind of, like, commands respect to me. He seems like real respectful. He's like a real quiet, seemingly like humble type of guy.
That posture.
And yeah, and it's almost like in the posture. Yeah, it almost like why. Like there's other people that I can like say Mike the Mouth, for example. If that was Mike the Mouth and he did that, I wouldn't feel as weird about it. But I almost felt bad. I mean, I almost felt that he was being disrespectful to berate somebody with the gravitas of Tony Gregg.
Right.
You know, and I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Like if I'm ever playing with Doyle and I 3-bet him, I'm not gonna start berating him.
Right.
You know, so but yeah, this guy, he was just like nonstop, man. So yeah, I feel the same way you felt about him.
Yeah, so I actually don't remember where this guy busts or how he busts, but I do know that I've set my DVR so I can see it.
Yeah, I got a chance to see it live, so I know exactly how he busts, but I won't do a spoiler.
So a new thing I noticed when playing, so I didn't play the World Series last year, I went this year, and the only thing that really bothered me was the young kids play a lot slower now, and they do a lot of fucking stare downs.
Yeah. I'm super torn about this because there's plenty of my friends who are either they're tankers or they're people who respect the tank. It's just not my thing. Like I remember watching Rob Salaburu play 2 years ago or whatever, and I was like, man, if everybody played like him, it'd be amazing. Because it would just be like on him, and he would just like grab a pile of chips, and, like throw them in the middle. And I would be like, man, can't we just all play exactly like that? And there was actually a guy at my table in the main event this year who literally eventually called out 3 guys at the table and said, you guys are the reason why us amateurs don't want to play poker anymore. This is why we don't come play the World Series. Because you take so long and you tank 3 minutes every decision. And nobody even replied. This is sort of the nature of those players. They didn't even respond to him. They literally sat there with their hoodie and their sunglasses on and were just like, you know, stare down mode. But that's when I first realized, I'm like, man, these people really are hurting the game at the end of the day. And I'm sure they're probably helping their ROI because I guess anytime you take more time to make a decision, you're probably making a better decision, I guess. But at the end of the day, if you're scaring away hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of fish, then you're probably not helping your ROI, you know?
Right.
But I'm a pretty quick decision maker. Like, I tend to act pretty fast unless it's like a massive decision. For a lot of chips or all my chips, I tend to act pretty quick. In fact, maybe too quick. Online, I definitely act too quick because I get yelled at it every day by my coaches. But but yeah, even live, like I act pretty quick. Like I just kind of feel like I know what I'm going to do. And I feel like if you're acting quick every time, then you're not really giving anything away. So I don't know. That's just my mentality. But I don't know that it's going to change. I think that, you know, the people have watched enough of Tom Dwan on TV that it's cool to act real slow and stare and drop your chips in as slow as possible. And I mean, even once they've made their decision, they still pick the chips up really slow. And move their hand really slow, and then drop them really slow, and then move their hand back really slow. It's like, okay, you've already decided to call, man. Just put the chips in.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so true.
I personally think there's actually a lot of situations where there's some merit to acting really fast, and that can add ROI to your game. Like if you imagine like playing heads up against someone, and if you somehow just always know what you want to do and can act really quickly, then being the other guy and feeling like it's always your turn to act, I think could be pretty intimidating. Like as soon as you act,
good point. Yeah.
As soon as villain acts, you just instantly respond, and then he has to make another decision without having time to think while you're tanking.
Right.
I think
it's like running the hurry-up offense in football or something.
Yeah, I think it kind of cuts both ways. Yeah.
I think like anything in poker, you know, like, I don't know, I guess an example would be like raise sizing. Like it went from 3 to 2.5 to 2.25 to 2, and now like people are 4xing. It'll probably come back around to where the cool thing will be to act fast. It's just going to take like some time for the cultural shift to happen. And everybody like, wow, that guy in the main event acted really fast. That was cool. I'm gonna start doing that, But I can't wait for it to happen.
Yeah.
I played with Ivy in the main event 2 years ago, and it was really cool because he would take a second for every decision, but he'd do like pretty complex lines. Like he'd just raise pre-flop, snap check flop, and snap check raise, and then barrel off. And then bet flop, check turn out of position. Then when it goes check check on the turn, snap bomb the river.
And that's way more intimidating, right?
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. And honestly, like, my issue is not even so much with, like, post-flop stuff. My biggest issue is pre-flop stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, the number of times people tanked 30 seconds and then mucked. And they had, like, 9-6 off or something. Like, they were mucking the minute they looked at their hand. But I don't know if they're trying to... They're literally already stalling on day one to try to make some money, or what is happening. But like if it goes post flop, I almost never get tilted about it, and I've actually never called the clock live. So
I think people should start calling clock.
Yeah, and I think that's what you're going to start seeing. I think you're like I would be willing to bet like next year for anybody who goes and plays 10, 15, 20 events at the World Series, I bet you'll see more clocks called than you saw in the last 10 years combined.
Yeah,
you should call the clock on anybody who shuffles their cards before they look at them, like instantly, and then when the floor comes, like, has this guy had enough time to look at his cards? Yeah.
Yeah. What's more tilting, the guy who shuffles his cards before he looks at them, or the guy who looks at one, then shuffles them, then looks at another one?
Yeah, the second one. The second one's definitely worse.
Yeah, I agree.
There's also this.
I can see it.
Go ahead, Doug.
I know the argument for, like, a lot of people's arguments for tanking often is to balance your timing so nobody can pick up reads on your range, but like you said, Derek, when it's in a spot where you just have 7 deuce off or something pre, and you're folding, and you still tank for 30 seconds before folding, I think that's just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, there's no, you're not getting any benefit from it. Yeah.
No, especially again, like day one of the main event, like half of the people at your table aren't paying attention to what your timing is anyway. Like, I get it when it gets to be, 100 left, 27 left, final take. Yeah, look, do your thing. But in the meantime, let's speed up a little bit here.
Yeah, day one of the main event, everybody has 300 big blinds. They're going to call regardless of what you do.
Yeah.
I ran some epic bluffs day one of the main event.
Pre-flop, I mean. Pre-flop.
Oh, right.
Like, nobody's going to be sitting there in the cutoff with, I don't know, ace jack. Think about calling you, but then you take longer to raise from early position. Like, maybe he has ace king. I'll just mark it. No, they're always calling with that ace jack.
Right.
Yeah, I made a rule.
Carlos.
Go ahead.
Go. I was going to just ask Carlos, do you see the same sort of tanking in, like, these win events and stuff, these small live events that you're playing on the weekends?
Yes, and
no way.
But it's not for that reason. It's the average age at my tables are usually like 70, and so some of these guys, like, they may think they're moving fast, like they're not purposely tanking. They just move.
They're probably.
They do shuffle the cards, but they do that pretty much every hand, and but they're not doing it to get a strategic advantage. It's just like a comfort thing for them or something. I don't know.
They might just take 45 seconds to decide if they have an ace or a 4.
Yeah, that's true. That's true too. It's like these people are not tanking, they're acting slow for the same reason that they drive slow.
That is a great description of it.
That it really is. Yeah.
I feel like that has to just be so odd, just be on a weekend at the Win, playing with people who are like 70 years old, poker, and like not talking to any of them.
Yeah. Okay. So I had this funny story where, like I said, I made the final table of this tournament on Friday, and there was this old guy to my right who was, doing the really slow acting and everything, and somehow he made the final table, and I think 7 paid, and so once we got down to 7. He was like, "All right, boys, let's chop this thing up and go." And of course, the chip leader was like, "No, we're not gonna chop." And the old guy was so upset. Like he was like, "We always chop. We always chop." Like he didn't understand the concept of not chopping. and then when he ended up busting in 4th place. And then when he busted, he was so upset, he like slammed his cards down and started to leave. And they had to call him back, say, no, you won $1,400. Like he had no idea he won money. He thought he thought that when you get to a final table, and it pays 7, you play down to 7 people, and then you issue out the money based on the number of chips.
So if you either chop or it's winner take all.
Yeah. And he thought at 7-handed, if you're the chip leader, then you get first place money. If you had second in chips, you get second place money. And if people decide not to chop it, then like you said, it's winner take all. And so that was an interesting experience. And then the next day, when I came back to play it, this guy was on my right again at my first table in the second tournament, and he was telling the story to the table about, oh man, I chopped last night, and I mean, like, I left last night, I didn't even know I made money, and and like somebody else was like, yeah, that was a crazy bubble, and he was like, what's a bubble?
Oh my god, I'm playing the wrong tournaments. I'm definitely playing the wrong tournaments.
This is not some tourist that wandered his way in there. He's a regular. He plays every weekend.
Oh, man.
And he final tables a lot. He had no idea what a bubble was.
So in these tournaments that you're playing, does the structure allow for are you fairly deep throughout most of the tournament?
Yes. It's a good structure. Also, there's add-ons, so that helps a lot, and also rebuys. So yeah, the structure is great.
Oh, cool.
I did a podcast where yesterday we reviewed the 10K 8 Max replay, where it's like shows all the hole cards.
Mm-hmm.
And Doug Polk was like 3-handed asking for an extra 1 or 2% over ICM, and this is like versus European and Grindation, which are pretty strong players.
Yeah, three sickos. I remember watching that.
Yeah, one of his arguments is like, I want to be rewarded for my talents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I sent a tweet out about, because I was watching that and I was like, oh my god, this deal discussion is way more entertaining than the poker was.
Yeah.
It was great.
Oh man, the line. Let me see if I get this line right. I think at some point Doug Polk said to European, "You realize this has to go heads up eventually, right? And you suck at heads up," or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And he's like, "You realize Grindation is like the best heads up player on the site," or something. And I'm just like, man, when I get to the day in poker where Doug Polk is telling another guy that he should chop because I'm the best heads up player at the table, like, I'll know I have accomplished something in poker.
Right.
And because to me, like, European is one of the sickest of sickos, you know? So it's like the fact that 2 people were basically berating him at the table was pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
What happened? European did not want to chop?
European did not want. Initially, he didn't want to give up anything above ICM. So Doug was like, if you guys, and this is the great thing about it, Doug was the short stack. And he was like, if you guys want to give me 1 or 2% above ICM, we'll chop it up right now. And European was like, I'm willing to chop, but I'm not giving up anything above ICM. And then that's when Doug was telling, like, you're the worst player here, right? So what they eventually did is each of those guys gave Doug $1,200 a piece, I believe, or maybe $1,250, and they gave him that above whatever his ICM number was, and then they ended up chopping and played for I think another $71K.
Yeah.
Fuck. Who ended up winning? Or should we not spoil? Alright, spoiler alert. Who ended up winning?
Grandation won.
Yeah, I thought Grandation won.
Grandation played pretty solid. I didn't watch after the chop discussion, but Grandation European played really well, and I think Doug Polk, up until three-handed, probably made like one or two small mistakes, which is more than those guys did.
Yeah, I think when I was so I was streaming at the time, but I had his stream up off to the side with no volume, so I wasn't hearing him talking. But I kind of felt the same way. And I mean, look, if Doug's listening to this, I'm sorry. You're a way better poker player than me, so this is not me like criticizing. But I felt the same way.
Bad rig.
Yeah, hashtag bad rig. But there were definitely a couple of spots where I was like, that doesn't seem right. Like the one I remember is where I think he had either 3s or 6s, and he like set mined off of like 20 bigs effective.
Right, it was 5s on the button. Yep.
Yeah, and I was like, well, that can't be good, like, because I know I get yelled at for that, and I am a bad reg, so I was like, well, that can't be good. But I remember definitely watching Grindation European and going, man, those guys do not make very many mistakes, if any, that I saw.
So
I mean, obviously you kind of. Doug's are going to be a little bit more called out because you can see his cards, obviously, when you're watching the stream. So, of course, his are going to be more noticeable, I guess. But I definitely don't remember any spots where I was like, oh, what the hell was Grindation doing there? Like, I thought those two played pretty flawlessly.
If you watch the replay on Stars, you can see everyone's old cards.
Oh, yeah, good point. That would actually be a fun review to do.
Yeah, it's kind of fun, like, podcast format. You just get a buddy on and, like, replay it and just send it out. Pretty fun.
Yeah, that'd be super cool, especially with that many sixes at the table, because there were at least 2 or 3 other like really, really good players at that table, and probably more that I don't even know because I don't know the PokerStars regs like I used to. But
there was
does that just constantly play on a loop?
Yeah, it does.
For like a week.
The replay.
Yep.
Yeah, until the next one. Well, I don't know how these, because this is like a W coup, so this may last longer. But they also do this with like Sunday Million. And it goes for like a week until the next one comes up.
Yeah, these last longer for a while.
Okay, cool.
There was one really good hand by European where he opened, I think, UTG four-handed, and Grindation defends 10-9 off, and Grindation's chip leader and European's second in chips. The flop comes Queen 10-10, and I think, so Grindation flops chips, and European has the open ender, but he just goes for the check back because that guy's the chip leader. Turns a so Grindation has 10-3 suited, so he doesn't have 10-9. He has 10-3 suited, so he flop trips with 10-3. Turns the 9, Grindation bets, and then he's just like not trying to bust versus him, and he just calls, and the river was a brick, and Grindation bets full pot. And he just calls with the straight on the river.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I remember that hand.
Yeah, I thought that was like a really well played, controlled hand where other people are going to risk busting there.
Yeah. I think, like when I'm 8-tabling and I have that hand, I probably do risk busting.
Right. Or you bet and then you get check raised huge and have to fold your King Jack or something.
Yeah. Exactly.
I just want to make sure if I got this right. Grindation is Phil McAllister?
Yeah.
Okay, and do we know European's real name?
Sam something.
Okay, so yeah, I'm not familiar with European, but I do know Grindation. But yeah, I'd be curious to find out his real name.
I'm gonna Google it.
I might actually go back and watch that replay tomorrow because I'll have a little free time.
I would Google it, but I don't know how to put the Euro symbol in my.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, because he doesn't have the regular E. It's like a Euro symbol.
Yeah.
I can't figure it out because there's a few Sams. Yeah, never mind. Can't figure it out.
Yeah.
Somebody will tweet at us and let us know.
Yeah, it's Sam something.
Cool.
So I want to talk to you about beer, since you seem to know quite a lot about beer, and I'm kind of getting into it.
All right, Carlos, this is your section.
Nope. I may be the only person here that doesn't drink.
Beer's good, man. You gotta go for it.
Yeah, so I got it. Yeah, it's interesting. So, much like I got into TPE, where I was just like, I want to start a business around poker. There came a point in my life where I had gotten into home brewing and making my own beer.
Oh, no way.
And so I had made maybe like 5 or 6, maybe 7 or 8 beers by myself.
What's the process like?
It's actually, so it's kind of simple on its most basic level, but it's sort of long, so you have to commit like kind of a whole day to it. But it's essentially boiling water, dropping grain and malts and hops into it, and then putting it into a glass container, which is called a carboy, and then you let it ferment for about 2 weeks, and then you pour it into bottles, and then it carbonates, and then you drink it. So it's actually like a relatively simple process. It just takes some time, you know. So it's like a lot of space, a lot of cleanup, a lot of supplies, but it's a lot of fun to do. It's like really relaxing, and like it's it's one of those things you can like do all by yourself, and you can just kind of sit back and chill, and listen to music, and I don't know, it's kind of like poker in that way, I guess. But yeah, so I had got into that process, and one day I was just like, it'd be pretty cool to work in the beer business, especially because in Raleigh, North Carolina, we're pretty much known as like probably the second best state for craft beer. So it's really big around here. There's a lot of breweries and stuff, and I said, I want to work in the beer business. So I kind of set my goals at getting a job. I didn't want a full-time job. I just wanted to like do something in the beer business, even if it was for free, to be honest. So I ended up doing social media for a local craft brewery for about a year, basically just managing their Twitter, Facebook, Instagram accounts, etc. And then they eventually brought me on in a little bit more of a, not still far from full time, but a little bit more time per week. So I'm actually head of marketing at this brewery, which is weird because I only work there a few hours a day. But I love it. And I'm at this point now, like I'm at this point where I drink like beer 6 days a week, roughly. So all my friends like make fun of me for like, being alcoholic and like, how many beers do you drink? Oh my God, you got to stop drinking. But I just enjoy it. Like I love the atmosphere. I love the culture of beer. I love the people that drink good craft beer, and I definitely love the flavor of it.
Yeah, Go ahead, Doug.
Would you say that craft brewing has exploded in the last like 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah, it's been massive growth. In fact, to the point where there's probably going to be a bubble, or a burst of the bubble. I would say in the next 2 to 3 years, probably. I think you're going to see a lot of breweries either get bought up by bigger, like macro breweries. So you're going to see Anheuser-Busch like buying a bunch of people.
No.
You're going to see I know, it's terrible. Yeah.
Don't sell out.
But you're also going to see a lot of people just go out of business because it's a very, very low margin business. Like you don't make a lot of money per beer, so to speak. So it is one of the it's something you have to be in it for the love of beer, for sure. Like there's way easier ways to make money than starting a brewery these days. That's for sure. But yeah, it's the growth has been massive. It's I think last year, actually, I could have this number wrong, so don't quote me on this, but I think last year, 2015, was the first year where all of the craft breweries in the country sold more than the biggest macro brewery.
Whoa.
Wow.
So, that's still a huge gap, of course. Like, so if you take Joe's Brew Pub, he's still way behind Anheuser-Busch, but as an industry, craft beer is definitely making huge headways.
Right.
Yeah.
What should if people are used to drinking Budweiser and Coors, what's a good starter craft beer for them to try?
Well, so in terms of, I would suggest 2 things. So the best thing you could do if you're a guy or a girl who drinks, a macro like a Coors or a Miller Lite or whatever, just go try to find a good beer bar, like a bar that has a lot of taps. And now I understand that for the average person, they don't even know what that means. So go into a bar and look for a place that has a lot of tap handles. Like they don't just have 4.
Right.
They don't have Corona, Bud Light, Michelob Ultra, and Coors, or whatever. Like, go to a place that has like 40 tap handles, and just be honest with them and tell them I've never had craft beer, but I really want to try it. I like Mich Ultra. Can you make a recommendation? And most good beer bars will give you a good recommendation. But if you can't find a good recommendation, or you just want to go to your grocery store, the best thing you can do is look for either like a Pilsner or a lager, or maybe even an amber or a red, and pick a label that you've never seen before. Because those beers are going to be pretty unoffensive to the average drinker. So there's a lot of like good craft breweries making good Pilsners right now. Like, that's kind of the hot new thing, is making a really good Pilsner. And that's pretty much what Bud Light is. But they're making it with better ingredients, locally grown, et cetera, et cetera. So just look for like one of those styles of beers, and just pick a label you've never seen and buy that and just try it. And then you can kind of work your way up. And I always tell people, look at the bottle and go light to dark. So if you're new to beer, start with a light beer in color and work your way up. Because if you try to drink like a chocolate stout,
Yeah.
when you're a Bud Light fan, you're probably going to be pretty blown away and not really be ready for it. Or a triple IPA or something. You're just like, oh my god, this literally tastes like marijuana.
Sours are pretty strong and difficult for me.
Yeah, sour. I mean, even I still have trouble sometimes with sours. I can't drink them in like any high quantity, and some of them are just too much for me. But I'm trying to work my way into them, you know. But yeah,
fan
just
of the sours.
oh yeah,
tried a few of the sours. Like
yeah, if you get down to North Carolina, make sure you check out pretty much anything from Wicked Weed Brewing in Asheville. They have some amazing sours, like pretty much the best in the country. Although I'm biased because I live in North Carolina, but yeah, they make some great stuff.
All right, Wicked Weed. I'll remember that.
Do you have a favorite beer or beer company or anything like that?
It changes a lot. I mean, so obviously, like, I work for Lone Rider Brewing Company out of Raleigh, so I'm obviously a little bit biased towards them. But I always tell people, like for go-tos for me, so this is tough because a few of these companies have since been bought out by bigger breweries, which is always tough. But I love, like, Sculpin IPA, which is a good go-to.
How do you spell that?
SCULPIN.
Okay.
Is that Ballast Point?
Yeah, that's from Ballast Point. And they also have like they have a few different versions of their IPA. So they have like a habanero and a pineapple and a few other grapefruit. But I'm an IPA guy, so I love my IPAs.
I went to a bar in Boston, and they do this drink called the Hot Girlfriend, and it's half habanero and half grapefruit sculpin mixed in a glass. It's so good. You gotta try that.
That sounds amazing. But it's like really probably my favorite go-to, and again, I'm an IPA guy by nature, but Bear Republic makes an IPA called Racer 5. It's pretty much available, I think, in all 50 states. And that's like a really good, like, standard IPA. Like, it's not too hoppy up front. It's just sort of super drinkable. And it's not super expensive either. So, you know, you might go to a bar and be like, whoa, what's this IPA that's $9 a pint? You can pretty much get Bear Republic for a pretty good, like, reasonable price. So those are pretty good go-tos for me.
Carlos, you gotta drink beer, dude. What's going on?
The whole time I was blocking this conversation out, I was looking up European's name. It's Sam Volsden.
Volsden?
Volsden. Vousden. He's from Finland, so I don't know if there's a different pronunciation of that.
Right.
Interesting. I wonder if he's done anything live. Like, it's interesting to me how some of these guys just dominate online and just probably don't even care to play online. Care to play live.
He plays live a little bit. 150K live earnings, but his biggest cash was like 50K. So I think online is definitely his bread and butter.
Damn, I have better live results than European.
I'll think of that.
I'm adding that to your bio right now.
That's funny.
Oh man.
Have you guys added anyone new to TP or adding anyone new? What's going on with the site? How's it going?
Yeah, it's been a little while since we've added new pros. So we added some new people, I think, around maybe 9 to 12 months ago, I guess, roughly. We haven't added anybody super recently, but we'll probably add some new folks because you know how it is. It's like some people like.
Wait a minute. Let me save you. You recently added Dylan Thomasy.
Yep. Oh, I forgot about him. Yeah, he's well. Problem is, he signed like a year and a half ago and just finally.
I didn't know that. And then Nate Mavis, that wasn't 9 months ago, I don't think.
Yeah, that might have been about like 6 months ago.
I think it's good you guys kind of scaled back hiring others. There was, I think in 2015, 2014, you guys got a ton of dudes at once.
Yeah, I think that was when we were really heavy on the whole, like, let's go out and find some people from other countries and other markets and stuff. And at that time, too, like, well, there was some U.S. pros that we just had easy access to because some of the guys were on lock and they were also on lock. And we were like, oh, well, we can just get them. But yeah, we definitely sort of scaled that back. I think probably the next big thing for TPE in terms of new pros is, I think we want to start sort of dipping our toes into some no limit hold'em games a little bit. It'll still be tournament focused, so that kind of eliminates we're not going to do like deuce to 7 triple draw videos or anything, but I think at some point we have to go out and find some more like PLO guys and stuff like that, even for tournaments. And I think, maybe at some point trying to bring in like a bigger name, which I think would be good for just marketing purposes. So I don't know if that's, I don't know who that person is exactly, but Phil Hellmuth, if you're listening, give us a call.
Oh, I cannot talk about that. Never mind. I'll tell you later what I was going to talk about, but I can't talk about it on the podcast, actually.
Oh, now I'm so curious.
How old is your kid now? Did you say he's in college?
Yeah, so he's 19, and it's his sophomore year in college, which is insane to me. like the other night he came home to basically surprise us that he was coming home. And there was part of me that was like, you can't just drive from Charlotte to Raleigh without telling me. And I'm like, oh, wait, you can. You're 19 years old. You can drive to Las Vegas if you want to. So yeah, he's old at this point, I guess.
Yeah, parenting has to be very different at that age. I mean, I have an 8 and a almost 3-year-old.
Yeah, it is very interesting. So I only have one, which I think is interesting in and of itself, or like a different dynamic in and of itself. And it's also just a boy. I have a boy and no girls, which I think is a whole nother dynamic.
Yeah, very different.
I think the biggest thing is just the whole you have to just accept that your job is now sort of over. Not that they're not going to come to you for advice or they might have questions or you need to help them out with a little cash here or there, but just you've sort of shaped them the way they're going to be shaped at this point from a moral and a sort of ethical standpoint and all those kind of things. And so you kind of just sit back and cross your fingers that you didn't fuck it up too bad, So you're like, man, I think I taught him right, and I think he's a nice kid, and I think he says thank you when somebody brings him his drink or whatever, But at this point, there's not much you can change, It's like it's sort of on them, and you can be there to sort of guide them a little bit, but for the most part, they're on their own at this point.
What are you proud of that you've done as a father?
I think the biggest thing, honestly, is, I'd say 2 things. So one would definitely be, I think I've passed on my sort of entrepreneurial spirit. Cool. So I've always kind of taught him, this concept of don't just go get a job because it pays well, or don't feel like you have to make as much money as you can, or work for the man, or whatever. Figure out what it is you want to do for a living, or not even that. Figure out what it is you want to do every day. And then figure out how to make a living doing that. And I think he has that very much in his mindset. So he's going to college for business with a concentration in entrepreneurship, and I'm hoping that he'll start his own business. But if at the end of the day he walks out of there and goes, you know what, I really want to work for IBM, then hey, that's cool too. But at least I put it in his brain that you don't have to do that. I think, and I think the other biggest thing too is just we grew up he grew up in suburbs of Los Angeles, and then we moved here to Raleigh. But I think we've exposed him to a lot of different races, cultures, different types of people. He's never really been sheltered. I mean, he's been in daycare since he was 6 weeks old. He started learning Spanish when he was an infant, and we've always been really big on that. Meeting new people and exposing yourself to new experiences that most people would not necessarily expose themselves to. I actually had a conversation with him on our way back from the football game the other night. I was telling him, you should really take 6 months off after college. It's funny. We were actually talking about Carlos. This is so funny. We were talking about living in a van, and he was saying, I think I could do it. I think I could do it. And my wife was like, no, you couldn't do it. You complain when the air conditioning is not on 72. You're not going to be able to live in a van. But I said, look, you don't necessarily have to live in a van. I said, but it takes 6 months. Go out there, live life a little bit, travel, just go to a random country or a random place and work at a Starbucks or whatever. Just pick something random. I said, you'll have plenty of time to establish your career from 23 to 70. Don't worry about 22 to 23 so much, So whether he'll take me up on that, I don't know. He'll probably get a job offer and snap it up because he sees $40,000 paycheck, but we'll see what happens.
Cool.
But yeah, so those are some of the things. Yeah. And there's certainly things too where I could look back and go, God, I wish I'd done that a little bit better,
Well, I can say that having met him, I can say that the little bit of experience, the little bit of time I spent with him, I think he did a great job because he seems mature beyond his years. I had dinner with him and KB, and I wouldn't have been able to guess he might have been 18 at the time, but most kids that I know at that age nowadays, you can't get their face out of a cell phone. But instead of texting the whole time, he's engaging in conversation with the two of us and maintaining eye contact, stuff that even I wasn't doing at that age. So he's definitely very mature beyond his years. Thank you.
That means a lot, and I mean I can tell you he talks about you a lot and looks up to you a lot. So I like to think that maybe that dinner we had, I think, will pay dividends down the road, hopefully for him.
That's awesome.
I remember just how messed up and dumb as fuck as I was at 18. So
exactly, I was in the same place for sure.
I mean, KB didn't even mention the fact that didn't he start a business when he was 15?
Yeah, so he started. Yeah, when he was actually probably, I'm gonna say 12 or 13. He started making YouTube videos of iPhone apps. So he would just be you can look back at his YouTube channel to be the 5 best apps for kids or whatever, and those are his videos.
Huh.
And then he eventually started doing essentially exactly what we do at TPE, making quote unquote training videos, but they weren't for poker; they were for Minecraft.
Huh.
So he did that on YouTube, and then he started his own server. So I guess the equivalent of starting your own poker site, basically. So people can play Minecraft on his server. He's kind of he's put that all to the side now with college kicking off and stuff. But yeah, he was making way more money than most kids make when they're 13 years old doing YouTube. I think he might be up to 25,000 subscribers now on YouTube, which is kind of crazy.
Didn't he make enough money to buy a car?
Yeah. So he's really into cars. That's his passion. He's way into cars. So he bought it. When he got his license, 6 months later, he's I want to buy a 2014 Mustang, and I was well, I'm not buying it for you. So if you want one, you're paying for it, and you're paying the insurance. So we took him to the store, and he bought one with his own money. And people are always why'd you buy that kid a nice brand new Mustang? You're spoiling him. I'm I didn't buy that damn car for him. If I could afford a 2014 Mustang, I would have bought one for myself.
That is awesome.
Yeah, he's a sharp kid. I'm proud of him.
The only car I'm really into now is the Tesla cars, just for like how cool they are. But I've seen a video recently that kind of freaks me out, where these programmers were able to hack because they're self-driving, they were able to hack it and actually stop it on the road while they were 12 miles away from it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had to deal with hackers recently, and the last thing I want is them hacking into my car.
I guess that's the issue with self-driving cars. They're hackable.
Yeah, and imagine the problems when that becomes self-driving airplanes or jetliners or boats or a whole separate set of issues.
Yeah, I still want a self-driving car though. I'm too fucking lazy.
That'd be amazing. Imagine how much poker you
could awesome.
Self-driving car with Wi-Fi. You just grind pokers or do whatever.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
One of the things about self-driving cars is that I think Elon Musk was saying that he envisions a future where you could be chilling at home and your car can do Uber for you, while you're just hanging out.
Oh my god, I never thought of that.
Yeah, that's fucking insane.
Wow. The only problem is there will probably be so little money in it because there'll be just obviously so much competition because everybody will have their self-driving cars out driving Uber.
Right.
Hmm.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated now, though. I want one. I want one.
They're safe, man. I don't trust myself driving.
Carlos, do you think the Nitmobile will ever be self-driving?
No, and it's even worse for me. Like, at least you guys like created humans that you can force to drive you places. I didn't even do that. So it's always gonna fall on my hand.
I assume marriage is not a thing you're looking for.
No, in fact, what I like to say is, if I have a soulmate, I hope she lives in Afghanistan where I can never meet her. Yeah, not in the cards for me, man.
I wonder if that'll ever change. I mean, because we all can change. Like, I wonder if there'll become a day where Carlos is like 50 and just goes, all right, I'm ready now.
And anything's possible, but I'll say that so I've worked in the school system for several years, and a lot of the people that I work with were female. And so, you know, I would tell them this, and like they always have this, you just haven't met the right one yet. You're going to find some chick that's going to sweep you off your feet. And I'm thinking, well, I guess anything's possible. So I always say that, but I don't see it happening.
Yeah. Well, I've spent enough time in Vegas with you. I've seen you fall in love at least 3 times, so I think there's hope.
You're confusing me with Mike Snyderman? I have no idea what you're talking about.
I want to hear one of these stories if you can.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
No, I will say that Carlos has been very consistent on this point from the day I've met him till now. He's like, no, I'm good.
Yeah, what I realize is that I'm so independent of a person in terms of like what I choose to do with my time that it wouldn't be fair for me to date anybody. Because I could be like, you know, I could have like some girlfriend from my hometown in Atlanta and just say, you know what, I think I'm going to go live in a van in Vegas for the next 3 months. And that really wouldn't be fair to her. And so, you know, I don't want to have to consult with another person about what I'm going to do with my time. So that's why I've made this decision.
Yeah. Your only hope probably is to find somebody who might also say, you know what, I'm going to go live in a van.
Right.
In, you know, Pennsylvania for 3 months. And you'd be like, cool, I'm going to Vegas. See you in 3 months. But those people are very hard to find. So you might be on your own.
Yeah.
There has to be some like hippie chick out there who would just be happy to see each other like once a month or something like that and be in a relationship.
That would be ideal. The only part with that is the whole
create a Match.com account, like only willing to meet once a month.
Like they don't have like when you go through Match.com and you select what you're looking for, like they don't have a box for like people who live in vans.
Right. Just put the once a month. Yeah.
Yeah. Nah. Probably not happening, Matt. Like my thing with that would be phone conversations. Like I guess if you're in a long distance relationship, you do like phone conversations. I'm super anti talking on the phone. Yeah. So like I just want to be by myself in a parking lot playing like, online poker on my iPad at 1:00 in the morning. Like that really just doesn't fit into most women's like, ideal mate.
Yeah. I assume you're not into monogamy as well.
I don't have a problem with it, but it's just impossible for me because of all the traveling. But like I'm not like anti-monogamy, but I'm also not like pro-monogamy, if that makes sense.
Right.
Basically, I just live by the mantra that everybody should just do what makes them happy. And so if you're happy being in a monogamous relationship, you should do that. And if not, you shouldn't.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Speaking of talking on the phone, can I ask you guys a question? Do you guys talk on the phone?
Never. Whenever I call people, they find it weird or something. So I don't really do it.
Yeah, every once in a while, like somebody will be like, "Hey, man, I called you and you didn't answer." And I'm like, "Well, do you want me to type a letter on a typewriter to you too? Because it's 2016. I don't talk on the phone anymore."
Yeah, I'm the same way.
I feel like the only time I
go ahead, Doug.
I was just gonna say that I think the only time I ever talk on the phone is for business when it's necessary, and even then I would much rather handle it through email or something like that. But
you can multitask with text. And like, like can't really, like somebody will ask a question, like somebody will call me to ask a question that requires like a yes or no answer, and I'm thinking you could have typed that to me, and I could have typed yes or no while I was continuing to do everything else I was doing, because if you're on the phone with somebody and the answer is no, then there's gonna be a follow up. Well, why not? And then it's like, oh my god, now we gotta go down this. Like I don't understand phone calls. It sounds so bad to say. I don't understand the point of human communication.
It's actually funny because I'm looking at our Skype call and I'm going, okay, I've known Daryl, 2 years or so. I've probably known Doug 2 years. I've known Carlos 3 or 4 years, and I've actually done a lot of business and stuff with Carlos. We've never talked on the phone once in our life.
Yeah.
Like we've never called each other, not one single time ever. Yeah. So it's kind of funny, but like my mom still calls, so I guess I got to answer the phone when she rings me. But
my mom and I don't even talk on the phone. Like there's times where I think she is real good about adapting to my awkwardness, and so like she used to call sometimes, and then maybe I was either I didn't answer or I answered and I was kind of like in a situation where I couldn't talk. And so she's learned that the best way to reach me is like text. So we even like even on like my birthday, she'll text me happy birthday. Like that, I know a lot of people find that weird, but like we text birthday and like we really just don't. That needs to be like if somebody calls me on the phone and I answer it, I'm thinking like, okay, this is like some urgent, like important shit. And if I answer and they say like, "Hey, what you doing?" I'm gonna be pissed.
Yeah.
So like,
I hate that. Yeah.
Like death in the family, something like that. That needs a phone call. But other than that, it doesn't take. Like my mom, when she wants to know what I'm doing, she Googles Carlos Welch and look at my Twitter account. That's how she knows That's how she knows I'm still alive. Is because of Twitter.
And it's not to say like I don't like communicating, because if you text me and say, "Hey, man, I'll meet you at PT's in an hour," I'm there. I promise you, I'm there. Like I'm all down for communication and having a beer and BSing for 3 hours. I just don't want to do it on the phone for whatever reason.
I'm the same way. I'm the same way.
So I disagree, but everyone I know is the same way. I actually like phone conversations over typing on Skype or whatever, just because the person's always distracted. I'm always distracted. I just like normal conversations where people aren't distracted. But when I'd call my buddies, be like, hey, you want to talk? It's like just not a thing that happens.
Right.
So the podcast was kind of started like that, because I can easily ask my buddy, or like you guys, like, hey, you want to get on a podcast? And he'd be like, yeah, fuck yeah. But I'd be like, hey, Derek, you want to get on a phone call? Be like,
that's funny as hell, because it's basically the same thing. But
Yeah.
just feels a lot less awkward this way.
I would have been like, hey, Doug, is Daryl okay? Because he called and wanted to talk to me on the phone for an hour.
Yeah.
No, but that's a good point. I actually just
Sometimes I wonder that.
Yeah, I just did a podcast with actually one of my friends back from the music industry, and he's doing a podcast about this record label that I worked for. So he's interviewing a bunch of people who worked there and different artists and stuff, and we were talking about it, and we were talking about how great, and he actually does like 4 or 5 different podcasts, and we were talking about how great podcasts are, because it's essentially, I look at it as sitting around a table or a bar with a drink in your hand and having a conversation, with the only difference being that you hit record.
yeah.
You know, like I feel like this conversation, like today, has been very much that kind of conversation. You know, where it was like, all right, well, let's talk about riots in Charlotte, and then let's talk about dating, and let's talk about phone calls. But that kind of stuff would never happen if it weren't for, like you said, if it weren't for the concept of a podcast, we would not have had this conversation today. So it's pretty sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have any aspirations to like make it a big podcast. Obviously, that would be cool. I just want to be able to get together with friends and cool people and have conversations. So
Yeah.
I don't do much in the way of marketing or anything like that.
Yeah, but I think that makes for the coolest podcasts in my mind. Like the ones that are overproduced and stuff, I think can lose my attention very quickly.
I agree. Like, I don't know if this would fit into the category of overproduced, but I've never listened to the Poker Cast. And a lot of people find that surprising given how much poker material I consume. But it's almost like a little too polished, and they're talking about current event news and poker. Like, I'd rather just listen to Andrew Brokers have a conversation with somebody about their life, or same thing on Mistakes Poker, like the long form interview versus like talking about 5 or 6 different things for like maybe 15-20 minutes at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've always been against it. Go ahead, Doug.
I've tried to get. It's funny you mentioned the Poker Cast, because I've tried to listen to that probably, I don't know, maybe like 4 or 5 times in the past year when certain guests came on that I was interested in listening to, and I've never gotten through half of it because of all the. I think it would fit into overproduction, and also just a lot of filler and sort of just things I'm not interested in.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
We need to convince Doug to quit his job and do the boot camp thing. What are you waiting for?
I'm working on it.
Have you thought about it yet? What the fuck are you doing?
I guess two things I'm waiting for are having a more solid, like a more well-defined plan, and also having more money to fall back on. So I'm getting there, but I think still the defined plan thing is something I need to work on.
Yeah, I think both those are fair reasons to delay slightly, but the key is not using those things as excuses to wait any longer than you have to. So I always have this debate with my friends, because they'll be like, oh man, I gotta go to this stupid fucking meeting on Monday. Can I swear? It's probably too late now. I've already sworn a bunch.
Did you just ask?
That's fine.
Have you watched any of my videos on TV?
Good point. They'll be like, oh, I don't want to go to work. I got this stupid meeting today. I'm like, dude, why don't you just quit? And they're like, well, I like my job. I'm like, do you like your job 100%? Like 100% of the time? He's like, well, no, like 95% of the time I like my job. I'm like, well, then you should quit. and he's just like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, if you're not 100% happy, then why would you do it? Like, stop doing that. You know?
Whoa, wait. You've been 100% happy with your job consistently?
pretty much, with the exception of my last 6 months at EMI Music, I would say I've been 100% happy. And that doesn't mean that there's not days where you're like, oh, like today I have to do this one little task, but I kind of wish I was doing this other task. But it was always like TP related. Like, so to use TP as an example, I lose sleep at night sometimes because I am so excited to wake up the next day and work on TP stuff.
That's awesome.
Like that's how much I love it. And that's the same reason I went to work at the beer company. It's why when I was between jobs, I went to work at Guitar Center because I'm a guitar player and I just loved sitting there and talking to people about guitar every day. But the minute that I got like, it's 9 a.m. and I have to go work at Guitar Center, I don't really want to get up now, I just quit. It's just like, I'm done, you know?
And I think, I don't know if you guys know that I quit my last job about a little over a year ago. Actually, now it's closer to like 18 months since I've been working at this new job for a little while. But I quit my last job and played poker for a while. It didn't go as I had hoped it would, and so I got another job. But I worked at my previous job for about 3 years, and that was way too long. And I feel like I kind of learned my lesson there. To where like I think I'm pretty confident I will leave as soon as I can, and I've only had this job for about 4 months, so
yeah.
I don't think I'll have a problem pulling the trigger when the time comes.
Doug, let me ask you this, because I do remember when you quit your other job, and when you decided to go back, is it a job in the same field?
Yep.
Right, and so was it hard to get that job? Like when you decided to go back, was it like when you were not going to be able to find a job, or was it kind of pretty easy to get a job?
I wasn't really worried that I wouldn't find one. Actually, I wasn't even really at the time thinking about finding another job in the same field because I didn't want to go into the same field. Mm-hmm. So when I got down to the end of being full time playing poker, and started, kind of made the decision I needed to go back to work. I started out by actually teaching myself web development a bit because I knew that's something I was pretty interested in.
Doug works on my site, by the way. Sorry. Doug's been working on my site. He does pretty good work. Anyways, go ahead.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah. So thanks for the plug. I appreciate it, Daryl. But anyways, yeah. So I knew I wanted to get into web development. I had kind of done some reading on it, and I started teaching myself, taking some online classes. I bought a course on Udemy, and just there's a site called Codecademy that has free courses. So I just did as much of that as I could, and I started freelancing a little bit. But I kind of let myself go too broke before I started doing that. So I wasn't really able to learn everything I needed to in a fast enough time to make enough money doing it to jump into that. So I did take on some freelancing projects and started doing web development, but I was making a pretty low hourly rate because the things I was able to do with my level of skill just weren't that highly valuable because I didn't have enough time to learn. So I started doing that, and then I in the process of freelancing, doing that kind of stuff, I stumbled upon a job as somebody wanted to contract someone to do SCADA work, which is supervisory control and data acquisition, which is what I used to do, and that was a much better pay. So I decided I would take it. It was like a 2 or 3 month job. I decided that I would take that and work from home doing that. That would help me get by for a few months, but it ended up falling through, and the client that hired me, they ended up just canceling the project. And right around the time that they canceled it, an old friend of mine randomly called me, who I hadn't talked to in a few years, and asked if I was looking for a job. And it wasn't really the same industry as what I was doing before, but it was along the same lines. It was still electrical engineering, but a totally different field. And I was at a point where I really needed to find something, so I ended up going in and interviewing, and that's how I got this job.
Tell them about the boot camp, how it works, because it's pretty sick.
Yeah, so there's a few different options out there for coding boot camps, and some of the top level ones, which are more difficult to get into, there's one called App Academy that is actually the one I first stumbled upon, and it's the way it works is you go there, you basically work your ass off for 14 hours a day for maybe 12 to 14 weeks, and you don't pay anything until you get through it and get a job. and then you pay like I think it's like 15 or 20% of your first year's salary as a web developer after you get through it. And if you don't get a job, you don't pay them. And they have something like a 98% hiring rate or something when you get done. I actually discovered that boot camp because of Hasid Qureshi. I don't know if you guys know who that is. Dog His Head. He used to be a old school high stakes heads up no limit cashling player.
Yeah.
I know the screen name.
Yeah.
I don't know the real name.
Yeah, so he wrote a poker book a couple of years ago now, and I picked that up and read it. And after I read it, I really enjoyed it. I ended up looking up his blog and started reading through it. And he, at that time, had quit playing poker for about 5 years and had eventually decided to become a web developer, went through the whole App Academy boot camp and documented it all and wrote some really good articles on it. So that's how I kind of discovered the whole thing and started learning about it, found that it's something I was really interested in.
Yeah, that's really cool. Actually, it makes me think of 2 points. One of which is, we were talking about my son being in college. So if I had my way, well, I wouldn't want to take away his college experience, because I do think there's something to be said for what that means to a 18-year-old kid. But if I had my like perfect way, it would be that he would have not gone to college, and instead of spending $200,000 or whatever, I would have spent like $100,000 and put him in like a startup house or something, like an entrepreneurship house.
That's cool.
Where basically people just like live together and build businesses together. Because I think you could probably learn the stuff you really need to learn about entrepreneurship in that way faster than you would in college. Like he's taking a class right now on like astronomy or something, which is cool. It's sort of interesting, I guess, but I don't know what it's going to do for him when he wants to like start his own company. And it made me also think of this idea I have for a business someday, and I'm just not sure the ethics or the morals of it, which is, you can invest obviously in like companies, like startup companies. But I have this idea of starting a company where you invest in people. So you would literally go and be like, this 12-year-old kid is going to be a genius. He seems so smart. So I'm going to give him $100,000, and I get 1% of everything he makes for the rest of his life.
That's awesome.
Or whatever the number is, So like for some people it might be more, because you might be like, well, this kid already has started a company, or he already has, demonstrated these skills or whatever. But I could literally go like to Doug and be like, wow, this guy has this genius idea to start this like website company or this website boot camp. But even if that doesn't work, I know he's going to do something really killer 5 years from now. So I'm just going to give him $500,000, but I get 10% of everything he makes for the rest of his life.
Deal.
Let me get my checkbook out here. So I think there's already sort of like micro investing companies happening for businesses, where you can literally buy like 0.0001% of a company or whatever. But I'm fascinated by this idea of like investing in people as opposed to investing in companies. It could be poker players too. Like you might be like, oh, I don't know. I'll just random name, like Jason Somerville. Like I'm going to invest in him, but I'm not really just buying a piece of his poker action. I'm buying a piece of how much he makes from Twitch, his PokerStars sponsorship, anything he gets paid to commentate on this live event. Like I get a piece of all the revenue. If he wins the lottery, I get a piece. If he inherits money from his grandfather who passes away, I get a piece. You know what I'm saying?
This sounds a lot like a 360 deal. In the which is a music industry thing, and you would know from like back in the day where the label only got paid from like album sales, and then when the album sales started to fall off, they started doing like cross collateralization and starting getting some of the show money and merch money and basically everything else.
Exact same kind of concept. Except it's like for life. So like
so it's 10 times worse for the person.
Exactly.
Like 360 deals are the worst, man. They're the worst for the person who signs it. I guess it's a great thing for the person who gets somebody else to sign it. But that life is a long time.
There's also like massive risk, because like what if the guy, what if you invest in somebody and then they get in a car accident 2 days later?
That's true too.
And then you get $0. Although I don't know, maybe they have a really good life insurance policy. You have to factor all these things in decision making about investing.
I get a piece of the life insurance money. That's awesome.
Yeah. Can you imagine meeting Fedor when he was 14, getting a piece of that?
No doubt. He's retired now, though, right? Oh no, wait.
Yeah, he's retired, but he still makes $1 million every 2 weeks.
Yeah, the most successful retired poker player of all time.
So you said you're pretty into guitar. Who's your favorite guitarist?
I guess just from the era I grew up in, like Slash from Guns N' Roses would be one of them for sure, if not my favorite, like very close. I mean, I also grew up like listening to a lot of like classic rock because my dad was kind of who turned me on to music. So like Jimmy Page, Clapton. But I think if I had to point to one person, it would probably be Slash.
Right. The only person I'm pretty decently familiar with is Clapton, like some of his stuff.
Yeah, he's obviously incredible. I actually had this great opportunity about a year ago, I guess, to take my dad to see Clapton play here in Raleigh, and yeah, it was pretty cool because I mean, I can remember driving, I could visualize it in my head, like in the back seat of our Pinto when I was a kid, and hearing like Cream and Traffic and just like Clapton solo stuff on the radio all the time because that's what he would play. So to get to sit in a seat next to him and like actually watch him play was incredible. Like he's definitely a boss of boss is when it comes to guitar players.
I think the closest thing we have to Clapton now, and you'd probably disagree if you haven't listened to this one particular album, or if you just listen to his radio stuff, is John Mayer.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably pretty accurate. I'm trying to think of another, like, because there aren't that many guitar heroes anymore, you know? Like, that was kind of a big thing growing up,
Well,
you know,
have you
70s, 80s.
Yeah, have you listened to the Live in LA album by John Mayer?
I've listened to some John Mayer live stuff, but it's been, like, literally on Spotify on, like, Shuffle, so I don't know if it's from that album.
If it's really good guitar shit, it's probably from Live in LA.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and listen to it because I do like his. It's funny because I don't even necessarily like his. I don't like his songs so much as I like his playing. Like he has a style that I think people from the 70s and 80s can really easily relate to, and the 60s for that matter. But there's not a lot of those people anymore. I mean, like guys like Prince have died, and there's just not a lot. I guess Joe Bonamassa is like the one exception these days to like modern day guitar heroes. They just don't really exist.
There's some YouTube guitar heroes.
What about Jack White?
Well, I think he's definitely like cool from the standpoint of like writing cool songs and like being a showman and crossing many genres and stuff like that. But like, I don't know, would I buy like a album of just him playing guitar? Probably not, you know. But I might do that with John Mayer, and I definitely would do that with Clapton. So it's just it's more rare than it used to be, I guess. And I think that probably just by the nature of like singles and like the music industry is more hit driven as opposed to album driven than it used to be. So people don't even really pay attention.
And there's a lot of electronic too, a lot more now than there was 5 years ago, and much more than 10 years ago, and so on.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are like especially people in my age are like really sort of resistant to that style of music to some degree because they're like, that's not music. They're just sitting at their laptop or whatever. But I don't know. I'm much like beer. Like we talked about beer earlier, right? So like if somebody comes to me and goes, my favorite beer is Bud Light, I don't really like think less of them or anything. I mean, I might in my head I might go, well, you'd probably like some other beers better if you try it. But you know, at the end of the day, if you like something, then that's your favorite thing. Like there's really no like debating it or arguing it, you know? So like when I was in the music business, we always had this saying, like every band is somebody's favorite band. So like, you know, you might say, well, Radiohead is better than the New Kids on the Block, which like seems really obvious to all of us. But if your favorite band is New Kids on the Block, then that's not obvious at all. Your favorite band is the New Kids on the Block, you know? So like I don't really fight it so much. Like I try not to be too much of a beer snob or a music snob at the end of the day. I mean, I like some pop stuff. Like, I think Taylor Swift has some great songs. Like, I'll admit it.
I love me some Taylor Swift. Embarrassingly.
Absolutely. But she writes her own songs, so that's almost okay.
Stevie Ray Vaughan.
What about... yeah, I was just going to say that.
I beat you to it.
Yeah, Stevie Ray Vaughan was incredible. In fact, a little bit of trivia. My dad was at the concert that he died at. Like, he was flying a helicopter out of Alpine Valley, Wisconsin, when he crashed and died. And my dad was at that concert.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I actually still go back sometimes and watch his live stuff from Austin City Limits. Just YouTube Stevie Ray Vaughan, Austin City Limits, and you'll just watch your jaw hit the floor for an hour while you watch it. Actually, Carlos won't, but...
Yeah, I'm thoroughly confused. I'm almost as confused now as when you and Assassinato was having the metal conversation.
Oh, that's right. That was a great conversation, though.
Yeah.
What about Jimmy Page?
Oh, yeah, I love me some Jimmy Page. And it's the one band, actually, that I really wish... I mean, not that all the members could get back together, obviously, but it's one band I haven't seen live yet that I'll be really disappointed if I die before I get to see him play live. I finally crossed The Who off the list last year. So if I can get to see Zeppelin as close as Zeppelin can be, which is pretty much Page and Plant. But yeah, if I can see those two together, it would be cool.
Doug, we are going to have a buddy of mine gigs in Vegas for a living past few years, and he's very into like all like classic rock and stuff. We're gonna have him on the podcast soon.
Awesome, that sounds like fun.
Yeah, hopefully he can play some music for us as well. Be cool.
Yeah, that would be a lot. Is he a DJ or what? Is he in a band or?
He's a guitarist.
Nice.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I would have to, if I had to pick a favorite, it would have to be Jimmy Page. He's my avatar on 2+2. It's a GIF image, like an animated image of him playing a solo.
Oh, nice. Yeah, he's definitely the man.
Carlos, you only like rap? What other music you like? No Taylor Swift? No Zeppelin?
In fact, I spent a couple of weeks in the Dominican Republic with my buddy Gareth Chandler, and I want to say, was it "Shake It Off" or some Taylor Swift song had just come out, and he would play that thing every morning and like, dance around the little condo to it, and I'm thinking like, turn this shit off. So no, I'm not really into Taylor Swift. Other genres, I can't really say that I'm into any other genres. There's particular songs and artists in other genres that I like. So like reggae, I like some reggae stuff, but I won't say that I'm into reggae because I couldn't name like the top 10 reggae artists right now. But some like, and see, I even have a hard time like naming genres. Like for example, I like Adele, but I don't know. Like I would just call it singing. I don't know what genre. I don't know what genre that is. So as far as genres, hip hop is the only genre that I find myself a fan of. You know, a large portion of it. And other genres, I just like a few artists.
Right. Is there anyone new you're listening to?
Say again?
Anyone new you're listening to?
New? No, not really. I think the last time we had this conversation, like the stuff I'm listening to now is a lot of new material from the people that we mentioned on the last podcast that I did with you. So I'm not really finding many new artists that I'm starting to dig into a lot of their stuff. I am finding new artists that I heard a song or two by that I like, but when I go and listen to a lot of the other stuff, it doesn't really impress me as much as the one or two songs did.
Carlos, do you ever listen to Leon Bridges at all?
Is that the guy? I think you pointed me towards the guy recently, and I don't remember if that's the same name. But
I think on the, I think it was a different guy on the last time we talked. That the guy pointing to. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. In that case, no, I don't know Leon Bridges.
Okay. Just curious.
I'll check it
he's
out.
good. He does like a lot of he uses like a lot of old school recording techniques, so his music sounds like it was recorded in the 60s or maybe early 70s. But I went and saw him live a few weeks ago, so I was just curious if you ever listened to him.
I'm writing it down now because I always like to hear new recommendations. Leon Bridges is the name.
Yep.
What I've been listening to a lot lately is like freestyles. So like I'll watch like YouTube clips of this radio show called Sway in the Morning, and he'll have like different up and coming rappers on there, and then like they'll do like a freestyle. And if I like the freestyle, then I'll go check out the other stuff. But I haven't found many new artists that I'm a big fan of. In fact, maybe like Little Dicky. He may be like the last one that I thought was really talented. And I think I heard about him like 3 years ago. So like in the past 2 or 3 years, I haven't run across anybody that I really, really like.
Sway is the guy with dreadlocks that used to be like an MTV. He used to be on MTV, right? He used to be like a host on there.
Right. Okay. And he has a really popular radio show. I'm not 100% sure where they're based out of, but it's on like Sirius XM or whatever it's called. But he gives a lot of new people a chance, and that's what I like most about him. And he also he generally does not tolerate whackness. So like when somebody comes on and they're not good, like either he'll make sure they know or his callers will. and I like that because there's a lot of stuff on commercial radio that shouldn't be on, but everybody just pretends like that's not crap. But I guess like KB said, some people like it. In addition, go ahead,
I was gonna say this brings up a question I've actually been meaning to ask you for like 2 weeks, which is, are you watching that TV show Atlanta?
I watched the first 2 episodes of it.
Oh, okay.
But I haven't watched it since then because at the time, what the hell is that noise? It's killing me.
I have no idea what it is.
That's my crack pipe.
I don't know. I can't
hear
it. Is it coming from me?
I don't know. It just sounds like somebody's like shuffling a bunch of papers. Yeah, I watched the first 2 episodes, but when I tried to watch it afterwards, at the time I was in a different hotel and they didn't have that channel, or they had that channel, but certain channels will broadcast different stuff depending on where you are.
Gotcha.
So like this is a good example. I can remember a couple of years ago, I was in Vegas in a hotel room and like the BET Awards were on, and I tried to check out the BET Awards. There was no BET in Vegas, and so at the time I don't know why I wanted to look at it. Like maybe there was like some particular performance I wanted to see, but overall I didn't really care because I'm not really into the majority of the current artists anyway. But this year my friend is going to be on there, and I definitely have to see that. So I may have to drive back to Atlanta just to watch the BET Awards when my friend comes on, because like the Atlanta show was on FX, and FX Atlanta apparently shows something different than FX Arizona, which is where I was at the time.
Got it. Okay, yeah, I was just curious because it, obviously it takes place in Atlanta. It's about the rap industry, and it's getting amazing reviews. Like I think it has like 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and like
the first
10 or something.
The first 2 episodes I really liked. And the thing that made me want to watch it is the actor that produces it. He's actually also a really good rapper, and like you guys probably know him from what's the show? I don't know.
Community.
30 Rock. The Community, yeah. So Donald Glover is his name, but he also is a rapper that goes by Childish Gambino, and I really like his music, and so I was like, okay, he's a good rapper, so I'm imagining that he's gonna put out a show that's decent. And right away, when I'm not gonna use the word disappointed because I think he's doing it more from a storytelling point of view than like promoting a certain type of rap. But like the rapper in the show is like the typical Atlanta rapper that I hate, which is not what hip hop in Atlanta for the most part really is. Like when you think of rappers from Atlanta, the local scene that I was a part of in Atlanta was like completely different from that. It was more type of stuff that he does. It's funny, he's a quote unquote Atlanta rapper, but on his show about Atlanta rappers, it's like different than the type of music he does.
Right.
So I don't know. I enjoyed it so far, but I think I'll have to like watch it online like the day after, as long as I'm out here on the West Coast.
Yeah. Cool. Sorry, I didn't mean to take over the podcast. I had been meaning to ask Carlos that for literally weeks, and I was like, "Oh, here's a great opportunity."
There's no such thing as a bad tangent on this podcast.
Yeah.
Nice.
The other thing I was gonna say, in addition to like freestyles on Sway's show, is battle rap. I'm into battle rap, and so I've like it's kind of weird in that a lot of the battle rappers are like known mostly for their battles. So there's some battle rappers that I've become fans of, but if they have albums, I've never heard them. But I've seen all their battles. So, I didn't even think about that aspect of it until just now. But I went with Assassinato to Pittsburgh. And because Assassinato had a rap battle in Pittsburgh, and there was a guy there that was like amazing. His name is A Ward, and so I've gone back and watched a lot of his old battles, and now whenever he has a new one coming out, I always watch it. But if he has an album, I have no idea. But I guess he's like the newest artist that I'm a fan of.
Nice.
The Source just had a good one. One of the TPE pros is a well-known battle rapper, and he just had a battle recently that all his battles get rave reviews, but this is one that people just were like especially impressed with online.
Yeah, I actually watched that one, and I thought it was really good. Like, I'm relatively new to watching the battle rap stuff, but now I'm kind of addicted to it. So I'm still learning like all the sort of lingo and phrases and stuff. But I guess it's like his comeback or his, what do they call that?
Rebuttals.
His rebuttal, yeah. His rebuttal in this last one was epic.
Yeah. The guy that he I'm sure I'm gonna screw this up, but I want to try. The guy that he battled, his name is QP, and he was actually on an episode of the Maury Show where his baby mama had like twin boys, and he was trying to. I think the whole plot was, I think one of the twins is mine, but not the other one. And so, like, he obviously caught a lot of flack for that in the battle rap industry. Like, every time he got in the battle after that, people would clown him about it. And, I'm trying to remember the line that the source said that just had me dying. And it was all true. It was something along the lines of, you got pending paternity tests on Maury and Phil Donahue. You're a failed father too, and oh yeah, a male prostitute. Like, all that is true because he also like put up an ad to like be like a male prostitute. So like, it's funny, like when you are like a casual fan, you may not know a lot of the background stuff, but you can still like you guys didn't know any of that, but you can still find it funny. But when you know all that stuff is true and then somebody uses it in a battle, it's just 10 times better.
Yeah. It's so great.
So yeah, I guess we're at the point where we're like wrapping it up. I usually like to ask. Me and Doug usually like to ask like questions at the end. Do you have any questions, Doug, for either of these guys?
Yeah, I guess my standard question that I try to ask everyone is, do you guys have any books or any other sort of media that you could recommend to anyone that you've read or listened to or watched recently?
I got a book I can recommend. It's called The Myth of Poker Talent by Alexander Fitzgerald, aka the Assassinato. I was privileged to get an advanced copy of his book to kind of give a critique of it ahead of time. So I read it several months ago. Highly recommend it. Highly recommend it because I know apparently Daryl didn't know this, but Doug and I are a part of a study group, a Skype study group for poker. Wait a minute, we invited Daryl in the group one time.
Did you?
Yeah.
Declined.
Yeah, he was he was there. He came. That's why I guess I'm just surprised that Daryl didn't know that Doug and I knew each other since Daryl attended one of our study group sessions together.
Dude, I have no memory whatsoever.
To be fair to Daryl, that may have been the session that I missed was the one that Daryl was in.
Okay, that could be true. It's like me, Mike Snyderman, and Steve Barton. I don't know, but anyway, point being, hell, what was the point? The hell was I talking about?
Something about
Assassinato's book. If you're somebody that really enjoys studying and putting in the type of work that the group that I just mentioned put in when we get together, this book will be awesome for you because it's like basically a deep dive into teaching you how to become better at poker and like how basically anybody can do it. And like the book again is called The Myth of Poker Talent. So like it kind of takes it's kind of like the anti-prodigy book. Like you can basically take any idiot and if they really put in the type of hard studying work, anybody can do this at a certain level. You may not end up being Phil Ivey, but you can do it for a living. Because it should make sense, like because the average person that we play against isn't good, so you don't have to be a genius to beat them.
I have so much respect for someone who can finish a book. I mean, I've been trying to write for the past year, and it's so fucking difficult.
Yeah, I have a book like half written, and it's still sitting there. It's been almost 2 years, I think. I'm ashamed to admit.
Half's pretty far. It's farther than most people.
So for me, what kind of sucks is like I have found myself not reading much anymore. I used to read a lot, never fiction, always nonfiction, and I've just kind of, I guess because of like the YouTube culture and the internet, like I find myself reading blogs and watching YouTube videos and stuff more than I read, read long form books, which is sad. So I don't know, like I watch a lot of and read a lot of Gary Vaynerchuk.
Oh yeah, he's awesome.
With that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I love his stuff. I mean, I know a lot of people who will watch his stuff and their first instinct is like, oh, he's very like car salesman-y and like I don't know, like trying to sell you on something. But if you get deep enough into it, you realize he never really ever tries to sell you anything. He just gives you like pretty cool advice, especially if you're into like marketing or entrepreneurship or social media, things like that. So yeah, if people are looking for like YouTube videos to dig into, I recommend his for sure. And even though I don't read, I still find lots of time to watch TV. So I'm loving season 2 of Bloodline right now, which is amazing.
What's it about?
It's kind of like a sort of a crime drama, sort of, but it's like about a family that lives down in the Keys in Florida, and like some shit goes really bad within their family, and sort of the ramifications of that and how it affects the family and the community. And so it's sort of a little bit of like whodunit with a little bit of like, wow, families are really fucked up all mixed into one. But yeah, it's really, really good. I'm sort of addicted to it right now. In fact, I was I'm hoping my wife's still awake when I go upstairs so we can watch another episode.
Most influential person in your life.
Wow. God, that's tough. So I mean, I don't know. I guess these are stereotypical answers, but it would either be my dad, but I think actually the real answer is probably my wife, honestly.
Okay.
Just because she has sort of like demonstrated an amazing ability to put up with somebody who chose a very awkward and tough way to make a living. And she does it all while raising a son probably better than I could have done alone. So yeah, I think that'd be my answer.
Cool.
Now, are you asking like currently or like over the course of your life?
Whatever you feel like.
Okay. So I'll say like over the course of my life is probably Tupac. And like the reason I say that is like I can point to like particular lines in some of his songs that have become like guiding principles in my life. And like one of them was about, you know, the conversation we had earlier about maybe we didn't have this conversation. We talked about not getting married, about me not getting married, but I don't know if we talked about me not having kids. But that was something that I heard in one of his songs at an early age. There was a line, something like, that's why I'll never be a father unless you got the time. It's a crime to even bother. And like, I maybe heard that when I was like 12 or 13 as a kid whose father didn't have time for him. And I'm thinking like, man, I'm never going to do this to somebody else. And like that line just really stuck with me. And it's basically the reason that I've never had kids is because like, you know, a lot of people, I guess more normal people, get advice from their families or like other influential people that they know and see on a daily basis. I got a lot of advice from Tupac, who obviously I didn't know, but I guess he was talking to me at a younger age when people that I actually knew were not talking to me, and that's where a lot of my guiding principles has come from. So that's why I say that he's probably the biggest influence in my life.
Cool. Do you have any more questions, Doug? I just have one more.
Yeah, I have one more question. Do you guys have a pre-session routine? I may have asked this, Carlos, last time you were on, but do you have a pre-session routine before you play a session of poker? And if you do, what does it look like? It sounds like KB's might just be drinking beer, but is there anything you guys do before you play?
I actually got really good for a while. So I got to a point where I was working out and then meditating. Mainly, I probably wasn't doing it as sophisticated as I should have been, or as most people do who meditate. But I was just doing like the Elliott Rowe MP3 session, basically, like before I would play.
Cool.
And it was amazing. Like I felt so good. And then, like many things that are good for you, I just like slowly started. Like I would do it every other session, and then every third session, and then every fourth. And I probably haven't worked out or meditated in 2 months. So that's actually a really good reminder for me to get off my lazy ass and get back into gear. Because I mean, although the funny thing is that I was losing back then and now I'm winning. So maybe I should just stick with the beer. But I 100% felt better back then. Like I felt way more good about myself and just about my sessions. Like I wouldn't tilt. I would like even a losing session.
It's funny.
Way feeling good, you know.
It sounds like almost the exact same thing I did. Like for a while, I was meditating before almost every session, and every session I would do the Elliott Rowe has a cool down MP3 post session cool down meditation. I was doing that after every session, and I probably haven't done it in like 2 months.
Yeah,
and I can definitely relate to feeling much better, especially the next morning, having a late night of grinding and then doing the cool down helped me sleep, and I felt better the next morning. But I'm just, I don't know, just too lazy, I guess.
And you too, and you too are on a massive up squeeze to just stop.
Yeah, it's probably a terrible commercial for Elliott. Sorry, Elliott.
That's fine, because he had Fedor give him a lot of credit after he won like $10 million in a month or something. So I think he's good. I think he's good on the marketing front. I haven't done any of that stuff, but I recently did an interview with the guy and he asked me that. And like people always ask me that, and I always say, no, that's not something that I do, but I know it's something I should probably do. And so one of these days I'm going to actually do it, as opposed to keep saying that I should probably do it. I don't necessarily know if I have like major issues that I need for that to specifically work on, but it definitely couldn't hurt. So I think probably my biggest barrier is like I'm too damn cheap, so I don't want to spend the money to get the MP3s. But I got an email from him recently that says that he's got a sale going, so maybe I'll try it out.
Right. Last question. Besides the obvious ones, poker and like tournament poker edge, name a few things that you guys love. What do you guys love?
Well, hip hop is obvious for me.
Yeah.
But besides that,
the more like non-obvious, the better.
Okay, KB, you go first. Give me time to think.
Well, I hate to start with an obvious one, but I love craft beer. I love good bourbon. I love barbecue. Like anybody who hasn't been to North Carolina and tried North Carolina barbecue needs to take a trip. Yeah, it's life changing. Like I know there's people in Texas who'll be like, "Well, you haven't had Texas barbecue," and I'll say that yes, I have, and I love North Carolina 10 times more. I'm really into like I guess this is something I talk about on my Twitch stream a lot, but I don't think I've ever really talked about it in any like poker podcast or anything. Very much into working with a local charity called Triangle Beagle Rescue, which is basically exactly what it sounds like, a local charity that rescues beagles. So we have a foster beagle right now, and my wife does all the social media for them as well, and we just kind of work really closely with them. So pretty much any time where I'm not grinding, working on TPE, eating barbecue, drinking beer, or watching television is spent pretty much trying to save dogs' lives, I guess.
Cool.
So yeah.
Awesome.
I don't have much, but I will say that like personal finance is something that's important to me. So like when I was in Atlanta, there were several like personal finance gurus on the radio, and like I thought they were, and I think they are like national figures, but whenever I mention these names, nobody ever knows who the hell I'm talking about. So like Dave Ramsey is one guy, and Clark Howard is another one. So like basically they just teach people about avoiding debt and cutting expenses just to kind of be more like personally, like financially responsible. So like that's something that has been important to me that I don't talk about much in these poker conversations.
Why are you so attracted to just minimalism and all that?
Because to me, it represents, it allows me to have freedom. So like I feel like if I don't have a bunch of expensive things to pay for, then I can basically use my time more for what I want, as opposed to like KB was saying earlier, trying to find a job with the highest amount of pay to like pay for things that I really don't even want. So like to me, the things that are important to me, like freedom, the ability to travel, the ability to wake up in the morning and do whatever the hell I want to do with my day, that is fueled by my being a minimalist. Otherwise, like if I had, some expensive car outside to pay for, maybe I wouldn't have time to be on this call right now. Maybe I would have to be somewhere doing something for money.
Cool answer. Thanks for coming on, guys. This was really fun. I love podcasting. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, that was a blast. I mentioned it on Twitter today. Like we kind of did this at PT's one night for probably about exactly this long, and it was one of the best nights in Vegas. So I was happy to do it again.
Yeah, anytime.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
All right, cool. Thanks. Peace.
Later, guys.
This is
Hey, before we go,
guys, thanks again.
wait. Before we go, I want to hear this story off podcast that you couldn't tell KB on podcast.
Oh, okay, yeah. All right, let me stop the recording.